Hello and welcome to the Weekly Stuff Podcast with Jonathan Lack.
Did you almost forget the name of the podcast while you're saying it?
I think I had a gag reflex because it's such a lie at this point.
It is. It really is. It's so untrue.
Before this break, we had gone like 3 or 4 solid weeks. We did okay.
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of how we get a good 3 weeks and then something happens and then it's like, we'll just take a month off.
Yeah, who knows. This month was, let's see, I spent 2 weeks at the Denver Film Festival in the midst of also doing school stuff. Then we had Thanksgiving break. Sean,
so
you were off in the Himalayan mountains.
Yeah, I was, liberating the nation of Kryat. It's a good time. Fighting fucking eagles because they're fucking evil.
And you were riding elephants too.
Die. Yes, and with a grenade launcher.
So, we both had pretty interesting breaks. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So, hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. Hope you all have a nice Christmas soon, and just in case we don't get there, I think we'll be okay. But yes,
I would not assume anything, Jonathan.
Yes. Well, anyway,
if there's anything I've learned about this podcast, is that we're completely unpredictable.
Indeed. Yeah. Last time we talked, it was the beginning of November because that was the episode in which we wrapped up Series 8 of Doctor Who.
Yeah,
we're close to the Christmas special at this point.
Yeah,
so
fuck yeah.
That's nice that new Doctor Who so soon after. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be nice. Anyway, so yeah. The whole month of November to talk about. And lots of different little things. Yes, we will talk about the Star Wars teaser.
Yes.
The thing that people are making too big a deal out of, quite frankly. We've got that. We've got some other movie news. We've got some video game news. In fact, I would say our main topic, this is kind of going to be a loose episode. I think we just want to play catch-up.
Yeah.
But other than that, our main topic is going to be November was a really interesting month for video games in that I feel like we reached this just pressure cooker boiling over point of games not working at launch and the public finally getting kind of outraged by it.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of stuff going on at once. And it's a really interesting topic, and it's, it's kind of a furthering of something that went on a lot in the last generation of games, but it's gotten even worse in the last couple years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fascinating for people who love video games to talk about.
Yeah. It's weird. Video games have got weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about some movies. We're going to talk about some video games. First, I think we're just going to start with the general stuff portion, which is, Sean, how was your Thanksgiving? What did you do? What kind of stuff have you played? What do you want to talk about?
Right, yeah. So, Thanksgiving was nice.
Good.
Ate a lot of food. Saw some family. But as for stuff that's relevant to this podcast...
You had your birthday. Happy birthday.
Yes, yeah, thank you. And for my birthday, I got the game Dragon Age Inquisition.
Sounds like a good present.
Yeah. Which I have not really dug too deep into that. I'm like 6 hours into Dragon Age Inquisition, something like that. It's a little bit... I don't know, because I feel like something happened to the play clock in that game where it was like... It wasn't even that I ran it running. It just jumped 10 hours. So it says I played 16 or 18 hours of that game. I have not. Absolutely not even close. Nowhere near that. My character's only level 4. It's I have no idea what the fuck happened. The play clock just went crazy. But yeah, that game... I'm not deep enough into it to sort of remark really much on the story, or really the combat, because I feel like I don't necessarily fully understand how the combat's going to work because I don't have enough abilities to fully fill out sort of my list and stuff. So the combat's really slow right now. But I think I see on when I go deeper down the skill trees and I get some more abilities, that'll fill out a lot more. But the one thing that I thought that I had kind of forgotten about Dragon Age, because I played the original one, Origins, when it came out, I think in 2008 or 2009. Then I skipped Dragon Age 2 because everyone hated Dragon Age 2 almost universally. Because I think it was, I didn't play it, but I think it was really different from all the other ones from what I've heard. And it's a lot sort of it was smaller in scope, and it sounded like it was a really rushed game. And this one feels a lot like what a sequel to the original Dragon Age should have been, where it takes a lot of the basic concepts and it the same basic sort of so a lot of the same characters reoccur and sort of evolves a lot of the ideas in it. But the one thing I had forgotten about in Dragon Age, because I haven't thought about that franchise in forever, is that the world that BioWare made is fucking fantastic. It's incredible to me that BioWare managed in the span of 2 or 3 years to make both one of my favorite sci-fi universes ever and one of my favorite fantasy universes ever. Because the thing about Dragon Age that's so cool is that the universe has this really high degree, I think, of verisimilitude, where they try to sort of make the fantasy world feel a little more real to you. That it's you have all these different races and you have magic and stuff, but all the things that people deal with in the world feel like things that people deal with, because most of the shit that goes on in the universe of Dragon Age is there's just like all these like this horrible discrimination. So it's like elves are like super, like everyone's incredibly racist towards elves, and elves are like confined to parts and cities where they have to live, so they're segregated and discriminated against. And like mages, everyone's terrified of mages, so they're like locked up in weird places, and there's like all these cool like all this cool political intrigue stuff, and there's this organization called the Chantry that's basically the Catholic Church, and there's all this stuff that it feels incredibly relatable when you get back into it. I'd forgotten all that stuff about that universe, and then as soon as I get back into it, it just like kind of fit back on like a glove. It was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. And so if you're someone listening to this podcast who has not played a previous Dragon Age game and you're going to get into this game, I highly recommend going online and finding like a lore thing. I think Kotaku had one that looks pretty good, that just kind of like describes some of the background, because one of the things I think is kind of bad about this game is it does not do a lot of groundwork at establishing the world if you don't already know the basics. This game, I feel like, really assumes that you've at least played the first Dragon Age game.
Which is a little weird to me,
Yeah,
because
it is
this
weird.
feels like the right point where people could jump on. Like,
Yeah.
I have not played the other ones. I am going to play this game. But, like, that game is old enough now, and it feels like there's been enough distance, especially with Dragon Age 2 not making a huge splash,
Yeah.
that you'd want to make it almost like Assassin's Creed 4 or something, where people can just get on board.
I mean, one of the things is part of it's a little bit understandable to me, because the story, as far as I've gotten into it so far, like, the way they're doing the story is there's no real opportunity anywhere to sort of, like, have a sort of, like, audience proxy character. Like, it wouldn't make sense, whereas in the first Dragon Age, there was a lot of build-up at the beginning of that story that allowed you to sort of understand the world. The story they're trying to tell this time around is a lot more sort of like Mass Effect 2-y in a way that's like there's no spot at the beginning of the story to sort of like stop and be like, oh, this is what the Chantry is, and these are what the mages are. And you can, in the game, obviously this is a Bioware game, you can just wander around and ask people questions and learn stuff that way, but I don't think that's necessarily like the best way to sort of get an understanding of the world. And then another thing that they do that's really interesting that I did is there's this thing called the Dragon Age Keep. That's basically a website you go to that's more or less their answer to how do you transfer, like, basically do the Mass Effect save transfer thing, but on new consoles where you can't actually do that. And it's not as important as Mass Effect because your character is a completely different character. In all three of the games, they're all different protagonists. But a lot of the decisions you make in Dragon Age Origins would have like a certain impact on the world that I've seen addressed a few times already in dialogue. So you can go onto this website, DragonAgeKeep.com, and sort of attach it to your Origin account or whatever fucking bullshit EA uses. And it's actually kind of cool that I think Mass Effect 2 on the PS3 had a similar thing where there's kind of like animated graphic novel where you can make choices along the way, which for me served as a fantastic refresher because I haven't played Dragon Age Origins since whenever the fuck that game came out, so I didn't remember like half the plot, so doing that really helped a lot. And it explained the plot of Dragon Age 2 really well. And it also made me realize why people probably don't like Dragon Age 2 so much, is that it seems like this, like the important parts of the plot of Dragon Age 2 basically can be summed up in like 8 sentences and you get the basic effect of it.
That's what my brother said. He just played Dragon Age 1 and 2 because he's really excited for this one. Mm-hmm. And he still is using his 360. And so he played those. And he said Dragon Age 2 is not a terrible game.
Yeah.
Because it's still, it has a lot of the same good things Dragon Age 1 had, but just in comparison, like the story, as you say, felt a lot weaker and just more diluted.
Yeah, because, and I almost feel like me doing the Dragon Age Keep and experiencing the Dragon Age 2 story that way, because also, like, the beginning of Dragon Age Inquisition absolutely takes off from what the ending of Dragon Age 2 is. Like, because there's basically this huge rebellion with the mage faction at the end of Dragon Age 2, and that's like at the beginning of Dragon Age Inquisition, your character is going to a summit where like a bunch of the like major factions are sending all these representatives to this summit, and then this giant like magic explosion thing happens, and so everything like is talking about what happened at the end of Dragon Age 2. I almost feel like since I did not play Dragon Age 2 and I only heard the cool parts of the plot of Dragon Age 2 in that Dragon Age Keep thing, like, Dragon Age 2's story seems cool to me because I only got the good parts of it and didn't have to go through all the bullshit that apparently everyone else had to deal with. So, yeah. Also, something that's weird, I don't know if this happened in Dragon Age 2 or if that is in this game, but there's a race in this game called the Kunari, and in the original Dragon Age Origins, the Kunari basically were just, like, really tall, muscular humans. all of a sudden they have horns now. And, like, that's... And this game is only set, like, 10 years after Dragon Age Origins. So that at some point they completely redesigned the aesthetic of this race, almost like the Klingon bullshit in Star Trek.
Weird.
Yeah, like, it was a really fucking weird, because there's one character called the Iron Bull that you meet, and I run into him, and it's like, who the fuck is this guy? And he says he's a Kunari. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, dude, Kunari are not giant Minotaur motherfuckers. Like, they're just big guys. Like, there's nothing... It's really weird. It's been a long time since I've seen somebody like completely redesign an aspect of their universe like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. It'd be like if, like, Turians in the next Mass Effect game all of a sudden were, like, rocks. Like, what? No.
Mass Effect, I feel like they would have an opening for that. Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
If they could just go ahead 500 years when the whole universe is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Dragon Age, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting back to that when I have more time. And the other thing I've been spending all my time on is just playing a lot of Far Cry 4, because that...
Hence our joke about the Himalayans.
Yeah, that's... Fuck, man. That game is really long, and I don't give a shit. Like, it's
How long do you
so
think
much
you've
fun.
spent in it?
Probably like 30 hours, and I'm getting pretty close to the end. Like, I'm kind of like wrapping up the outposts, and if I mainlined the story content, I could probably beat the game in like 3 hours, but I probably, with the other side stuff I want to do, I probably have like a good 8 hours left in that game.
I've just been jealous watching you play this game, because I want to play it so bad.
God, it's so much fun. And then now also the part where I'm at in the game, I've unlocked like all these really powerful weapons. In particular, there's one, I think it's called the Buzzsaw, that's basically this light machine gun. That's just ridiculous. I think its clip holds like 200 rounds, and it fires at an extraordinary rate, and it just kills people like instantly almost. It's one of the most ridiculous guns. I also have this like huge fucking shotgun that's like an elephant hunting gun. That's fantastic, because I'm not using it to hunt elephants. I'm using it to hunt the fucking Royal Army of Kyrat. So you just shoot guys with this giant shotgun, and they just go fucking flying. And then you... Like, the game's really great, because it's... Basically, if my general review of it is, if you liked Far Cry 3 and you want to play more of that basic kind of game with some cool improvements, and obviously, like, a new, like, island... Or not island, but a new map and all that stuff, this is the perfect fucking game. It is absolutely has all the good stuff about Far Cry 3. I think it's even better because the improvements they do make and the additions they do make are really valuable and add a lot to the game. Like, just being able to shoot while you drive is a really big thing that kind of like just helps the pace of the game a lot, and some small improvements like that. But fucking hell, man, like that in that game, I love that you can either decide to play it completely stealthy and use like the knife takedowns and the bow and feel really badass that way, or if you want, you can just say fuck it and just like pull out C4 and just chuck C4 and blow up rhinos and shit, you know?
And the thing is, when I would watch you, Sean and I have not actually talked for like a week.
Yeah.
This is our catch-up too. But when I was watching you play the early parts of the game, I would see you like vacillate between those two. You would do one thing really stealthy, I'm like, that looks pretty cool. And then you would do the C4 thing, I'm like, that's really cool too.
Yeah. There's something, I haven't done this yet, but I'm going to try to take out an outpost, is I want to get an elephant, because I have the elephant riding perk, and I want to strap a bunch of C4 to it, and then like bring it up close to an outpost and try to get the enemies to shoot it so it'll like charge at them and then blow it up. It would be it's a Trojan elephant. It would be the fucking best. I haven't done that yet.
I love the sentence, I have the elephant riding perk.
Yeah, it's so fucking cool too, because it's great, because you are so overpowered in this game, it's not even funny. No, you're so overpowered, that's wrong. It is extraordinarily funny, because like, if you want to play it stealthy, it makes the game harder, because if you don't want to get caught, obviously, like, that requires a certain degree of skill. But there's something so satisfying about I got caught, fuck it, whatever, just have some C4, and here's the fucking Molotov cocktails, and they still have... I wish every game had the fire system that Far Cry does, where shit lights on fire, and so if you throw a Molotov cocktail into, like, the brush, it'll light on fire, and then, like, guys will catch on fire, like... Fucking tigers will catch on fire and go attack other guys and set them on fire, which is the fucking greatest. Or you can shoot fire arrows. Fire arrows are pretty good. Like, the game just gives you so many tools to create incredible chaos, and the open world is so alive with all these enemies just wandering about fighting like your Golden Path teammates, and just like fucking eagles just descending from the skies and clawing your eyes out, and then you just decide, No, fuck you. And you pull out this giant light machine gun and just dump 200 rounds into the sky hoping that it'll take out the fucking eagle. There's so much nonsense you can get up to in this game. It's fantastic.
Oh, it sounds really great.
Yeah.
And it also looks gorgeous.
Yeah. It's also, I really appreciate the setting because, it's set in this fictional area in the Himalayas. And you just never see that in a video game. You never get that kind of setting.
It was weird to watch you play this and realize how little I see mountains in video games. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, but mostly I see mountains in, Bungie skyboxes.
Yeah, exactly. And they use the verticality really well in this game because you get the wingsuit that you had in Far Cry 3, but you got it at, the very end of the game. So in this, you get it really early on, and it just makes moving around the world really fun because you just jump off a cliff and you basically soar like a flying squirrel or something and just kind of glide down, and you can pull a parachute whenever you want. There's also a helicopter in the game that was not in Far Cry 3 that really helps you sort of with the verticality, and there's a grappling hook that you can only grapple the hook to specific grappling points, but they populate the world with a bunch of those grappling points, so it doesn't feel restrictive.
Nice.
Yeah. And, one thing that's really fun that I did the other day was I just decided, what, fuck it. I have this grenade launcher, and here's this buzzer, this helicopter, and I know when I'm on my parachute that I can aim with whatever gun I want. So I just took the buzzer up really, really high over an outpost, jumped out, pulled my parachute, and just rained grenades down on them while I parachuted down, and killed everybody before I hit the ground.
Nice.
Yeah. It's pretty great.
Awesome.
So that's what I've been doing.
Well, that sounds like a pretty fun break.
Yeah.
This is why video games are awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Because you can say the sentence, I have the elephant riding perk.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's see. What have I been up to? Same kind of overall thoughts on Thanksgiving. Spent time with family. I actually went to Iowa for Thanksgiving. That's where a lot of my family is. So had a long drive there, long drive back. But I had a certain Persona game to keep me company.
Yes.
And it was wonderful. We're going to build to that, though.
Okay.
Because it's Persona, and it is the most important thing we talk about on this podcast. And I want to savor it. I really do. So, but before we actually went on this trip, which was fun, spent time with family, it's all good, as you say, ate lots of food. That's really what Thanksgiving is about.
Yes. Yeah.
Look forward to doing it again on Christmas. It occurred to me that it is really weird, the spacing out of these two functionally identical holidays 1 month apart. Mm-hmm. It's always weirded me out. But, oh well.
We don't get to make the rules, Jonathan.
We don't. I'm just saying, if the world had forethought, you would have spaced those out so we could have more breaks.
At some point, society will just decide it's let's just redesign this and make it a little more practical for everybody. But
indeed,
it's not that day yet.
Oh well. But anyway, so before we left town, I kind of went back to my parents' house, and my brother came back from Fort Collins, where he's in college. And we just kind of hung out for a couple of days, and he has an Xbox One, which he bought. So I got to spend a lot of time with the Xbox One this week, which was interesting, because we've talked a lot about the Xbox One on here, but mostly from, the news perspective, what we've seen, what they've been doing well, what they've been doing poorly, those sorts of things.
Yeah, because I still have not, interacted with one at all.
Well, I've interacted with one heavily, and I actually was really impressed. The UI is a hot mess, and that's just the state it is at, but you know what? I was thinking about this. I've never liked an Xbox UI. Ever. I didn't like the blades, I didn't like the NXE, I didn't like whatever the fuck the last one was on the 360, and I don't like this one. There's something about the design aesthetic of those that does not respond with me, and I understand that. I just think it's a little cluttered. I like things like the PS4 where it's just simple.
Yeah.
But, that's just me, and I understand why people may think differently, because there are obviously some advantages to the slightly deeper system they have on Xbox One on the front page, but it just felt... I looked at him like, Thomas, where do you launch the game? And he's like, I think it's... No, and he was still unsure somehow. So it was a whole thing. But
Did he buy the version that did not have the Kinect?
Yeah, okay. So no Kinect.
Yeah.
And
so I imagine that probably makes the UI even more kind of baffling.
Yes.
Because the UI was originally designed with voice commands in mind.
And they are gradually stripping out all the Kinect things. I mean, I think by this time next year, it'll probably be a perfectly serviceable UI for the controller. They've already done things like there's a shortcut now to do a lot of the Kinect functions. You just hit guide twice, and then you use the D-pad, and you can do things like record, snap, all those things. And it's not perfect, but I feel like, in 1 year, they've done a lot to reverse their big mistake.
Yeah.
So it's getting better. Here's what first impressed me most, though. The Xbox One controller is fantastic. I had only used it at, a Best Buy or something, where when I went to a Best Buy and they had one out, and I'm like, I'll try this. And that's never a great way to try a controller, because they have it, tethered down, and it's weighted weird, and that was a little weird. And I didn't love it then. But I spent several days. But basically, what I played on the Xbox One was many hours of the Master Chief Collection. I fucking love Halo.
Yeah.
This was dangerous for me. We'll explain that later. And anyway, so obviously these are games I know really well. And I've played with a similar styled controller for hundreds of hours. So playing with the Xbox One controller was actually a really good test of how I liked this controller. The first thing I want to point out, the thumbsticks on the Xbox One controller are far and away the best thumbsticks I've ever used on anything. And I didn't even realize how important that was until I was playing it and realized the thumbsticks are obviously your main interface with any controller. You use them the most. And they're comfortable and they're precise in a way that no other thumbsticks ever have been. And that's not putting down like the ones on the 360 or the PS4, which I think are good thumbsticks. But like, that actually is my biggest complaint with the DualShock 4 is my thumbs tend to slide off the thumbsticks. And I don't
have that problem.
Yeah, some people do, some people don't. I've heard differing reports on that. That's just me. The rubbery kind of feel is not perfect for me on those. But this was really nice. So they're kind of... the thumbsticks are a little smaller than they were on the 360, and I think about the same size as the Xbox or as the PS4. But they're inverted, not concave. What's the
inverted is not
inverted?
There's convex and concave. Concave goes in, convex goes out.
Concave was the word I was looking for. Convex is the PS4.
Yeah.
But anyway,
the PS4 is kind of like convex and concave.
Yeah,
it has like the lip around. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, which is actually what causes some of the confusion for me when I play it. But anyway, so it was really nice. They're very comfortable just to use, but also there's just when you start using them and you use them for a while, you realize there's a precision to them because there's very little resistance on them, and yet there's a lot of precision. It's really hard to describe unless you've used it. But like if you use the old 360, you'll notice that you just kind of they move in that circle and they're restricted by the plastic and they feel good, but they're just normal thumbsticks. These have this layer where you honestly don't hit the plastic around it all that much because they're precise enough that you can do really small movements and without having to move the thumbstick a lot. You can be really precise. I'm using that word precise because I guess that's the best descriptor. It's just hard to say. It's just there's not a lot of resistance to it, and yet there's just this kind of perfect amount to let you move however you kind of want to on those thumbsticks. It's the kind of thing that I didn't know I was missing it until I played with it, and then I was like, this is really a terrific controller. Now, they've improved a lot of other things. The triggers are immeasurably better. I don't know if I like them more than the PS4 controllers, because I think those are really comfy. But these are comfy, too. They're a lot bigger. I think no matter what size hands you have, those triggers are going to be better than the 360 ones, which, after a couple of years, for me, kind of realized that they were a little uncomfortable with it just being those, like, straight kind of lines.
Yeah.
Like, definitely whenever I would play Grand Theft Auto, it felt like when I had to hold it down for a long period of time. These felt good holding down for long periods of time, as the PS4 ones do. I think the bumpers, they're too
bumpers, from what I've heard, the bumpers is like the most controversial part of the controller, where there's some people that are fine with them, and there's some that, like, despise them.
I don't despise them, and I don't love them. I'm kind of in the middle. They're perfectly functional. What I don't like is that they moved them out a little bit from the triggers, and they're hard to get to for me. Like, maybe the way you play, where you have the two fingers on top.
Yeah, like a sane, intelligent human being.
I don't know if it would be a problem for you. It is for me, just the way I normally hold a controller. I had to move my hand a little more to get to those bumpers than I would like. Not a huge problem with Halo.
Maybe they should have brought the black and white buttons back.
Indeed. Yes.
Fuck bumpers, you don't need them. Just have these buttons just awkwardly on the side of the controller. That's all you need.
That's one of the nice things about the Master Chief Collection is when you play Halo 1 and 2 now, it no longer uses the black and white and you have to remember what the fuck those masks are.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, so those bumpers are not my favorite, but I think the face buttons feel a lot better. They're just a little clickier, a little more responsive, kind of like the PS3 to the PS4 with their face buttons where they just made them feel a little nicer. And the D-pad, it's a good D-pad.
Thank God.
I don't think it's a great D-pad. I don't think it's on the level of like the Vita or the PS4.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's perfectly functional.
It's not the nightmare that was the 360 D-pad.
Yeah. It was funny because I'm used to when I hold a 360 controller and I have to type something using the thumbstick because the D-pad was just unusable. But now I was like, I can use this D-pad, and I was typing with the D-pad, and I'm like, this feels great.
Yeah. Like, I realized when I was playing Dragon Age Inquisition how used to I got of having a really great D-pad, because there's something kind of weird in the menus of that game. And it makes sense because in the menus of the game, you use the D-pad generally to cycle through your party members. Like, so if you're in the inventory and stuff, that's how you switch characters, because there's so much fucking inventory management because it's a really complex game. But that means that you can't move the cursor in the menu with the D-pad, which is how I have so gotten used to, because the D-pad's so useful for that. So I forgot this. This is how I always used to control menus, because the 360 D-pad was so awful you never wanted to use it like
right.
that.
Yeah, I've already gotten back into that because I spent like the last year of the previous generation using the PS3.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love a good D-pad. There's nothing better because, you know, there's just because, you know, we have a lot of 3D games now that use thumbsticks, there's no reason the D-pad is not an important, crucial part of the controller.
Yeah.
Anyway, so good D-pad. Overall, really comfortable controller. It's, I don't know in terms of weight. I think it's maybe slightly heavier than the Xbox 360 controller, but in a good way. Like, it feels like it's got a nice weight in your hands. It doesn't have that battery pack that sticks out on the back, so it's much more comfortable to hold. It really formed my hands great. Overall, it's, to me, every bit as good a controller as the DualShock 4, and in some ways it's nice that it doesn't have things like the touchpad no one uses in the middle, or the light bar that sucks up battery, or those sorts of things.
How do you feel about the menu and view buttons? Or
I just laugh. Here's the thing. I did not realize until yesterday when Thomas and I were watching a Let's Play in something that those were called the menu and view buttons.
And I feel like I know what those buttons are called more than most people because that's the only way I've seen it is in like videos. So it's like I don't have to deal with the symbols. I just think of it's the menu and view button.
No, I just think of it as 3 lines and 2 squares.
Yeah.
That's what it is for me. It's 3 lines and 2 squares. I just think it's a baffling choice. I don't know why they changed that. Start and back was fine. It's a really weird thing. Menu and view are fine names for those buttons, but you would have to print them on there.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's nothing, because menu and view are such abstract concepts that obviously they did not come up with a good way to visually represent it.
And I don't know how 3 lines represents a menu.
Because it's the 3 lines, like there's like, you know, like a vertical items on a menu, and then a view is 2 squares interposed on one another. Obviously. Because that's what the word view just means, right? It's just
well. Let me talk about the UI a little bit because it's, as I said, the user interface is a little cluttered for my taste, but it's fast. It's, you know, zippy. It's a little harder to get to a lot of the options than it is on, let's say, the PS4. But there's also a little more option rich because that's a split that I think everyone is aware of.
Yeah,
is that this UI just gives you a lot more to do than the PS4, but at this cost of simplicity and ease of use. So there's all of that. They have now, obviously, they have the battery indicator in there now. They have Actually, it's kind of nice how they do storage indicator. They just, when you go into settings on the left-hand side, it's got a big circle and a percentage. You can go in deeper than that if you want, but I kind of like that. Just telling me, like, okay, I'm 25% full. That's nice and easy to use. So that's all good. The best features about the Xbox One definitely are its media apps. It's a much more rich environment than the PS4. Any media app you want, it's there.
But only just recently they got Crunchyroll. So
really,
that was only like a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
I did not know that.
On the,
that is fucking bizarre for their business plan. I did not know that. Okay, well, it's there now.
Yeah,
so that's good. It has all. I did not get to try this yet, but I know they recently added all the DLNA streaming,
right?
And those sorts of things. You can use your USB thumb drives and play all your stuff.
Yeah,
I think it plays CDs. It's, so obviously as a media device, I'm
trying to remember if it plays CDs. I think it doesn't. I don't think either
really?
of them do.
Okay.
They might have added that in, but I don't think it did at launch.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you're using it as a media device, your Xbox One versus your PS4, this does have a lot more options on it at the current time. There's no reason PS4 can't add all of this stuff in, but that's not their priority right now, it seems like, which is fine. But yeah, so there's all of that, but definitely my favorite feature is it is a lot faster to start up than the PS4 out of their, like, similar rest mode, whatever you want to call it, their suspend mode. And I think that feature where your games just go into sleep mode like they do on, your Vita or your 3DS or something, and then you can turn your console off, come back, and it just comes back wherever you were. That's a really cool feature. And it's really seamless. Your console turns up in about, turns on about 10 seconds. You can go right back into your game. The main, square in the interface when you launch your Xbox One is just that main box where it's got whatever you're running at the time.
Yeah.
So it was a little confusing to me. I really just focused on playing Halo, so I didn't spend a lot of time with the UI because I felt like I had limited time with the device. I didn't want to spend all my time in the UI. But
that's what I would have done. Yeah.
You're crazy.
I'd have torn that UI apart.
Right. Well, that would take.
You have to. Like, I don't know how people don't as soon as they get something new.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get it. I mean, that's... Anyway.
Well, you have access to something new. Like, I would, even if I was over at a friend's house, like, I would delete everything on their hard drive just to see how it handles that process.
Yeah. But, anyway, the main story here, Halo the Master Chief Collection has some problems, and we're going to talk about that later. The multiplayer is not an utter disaster, but it does take too long to get into matches, and it kicks you out of matches too often. And there are some bugs in the other side of it. Like, once in a while, the game crashed on us. There was a day, actually, where it crashed like 3 times in a row, and we just had to leave it for like a couple hours, and we came back, and it worked fine. I don't know what that was about, but it is a common problem as I understand it.
Yeah, definitely.
And it would not save our Forge maps, which was a real bummer because we
Yeah.
made a pretty cool map and it was fun, and that was sad.
Yeah, like I have spent for someone who doesn't like. Obviously, I don't have an Xbox One, so I have not touched the Master Chief Collection. I've spent like a weird amount of time reading like bug reports on the internet, just because like I find it seems like there are some people that, especially if you're only playing campaign, are like generally more or less fine. And there are some people that it's like Halo 3 won't even load up. Like they can't even get into any Halo 3 related content because it will just crash the game immediately. Like so it seems like that game can be completely disastrous for people.
Yeah, and I don't know what to say about that because I only have my own experiences, you know? But I'll just say this. Obviously, I'm a huge Halo fan and I'm biased in this way. This is kind of the most fun I've had playing video games all year. And that kind of speaks to that this has been kind of a dull year for video games. Not the best one in the world.
You haven't been playing Far Cry 4, to be fair.
I have not played Far Cry 4 yet.
So don't make judgments until you throw C4.
Oh my god, it was dangerous for me getting back into Halo like this because I think when the Master Chief Collection works, and I think they'll get it back to function. They've been making improvements and they seem to be working hard at it. So we'll see. But anyway, it is a really great idea. Having all the games there, the menu systems are so easy to use and so intuitive. All 4 games are there, including the original and remastered versions of Halo 1 and 2, all accessible. It's great. And when you get into a Halo campaign mission and you're playing at 60 frames per second, it is an utter revelation. It is so weird to see these games that I have played over and over and over again in 60 frames per second. It's so gorgeous. Halo 3 is now kind of the worst looking game in the set because it hasn't been remastered.
Didn't touch it up that much.
But it looks great. It's like that game has such good art direction. It holds up great. In 60 frames per second, it looks awesome. It doesn't look like an Xbox One game, but that's not what you're buying it for. Halo 4, holy fucking shit, that looks like an
that game always looked fucking great.
Yeah. And honestly, it was kind of fun. The biggest revelation playing the Master Chief Collection for me was I'd kind of forgotten just how good Halo 4 is. I think we've kind of focused on some of its shortcomings in the last couple of years. That's a really good game.
Yeah, it's a good game. Yeah, definitely.
I really like Halo 4. I think, its storytelling is a little erratic, but also when the storytelling is
good... It's the Didact! What?
Yeah. But it was kind of... I did not have time to play all the campaigns again, but just going through and jumping around missions, what I remembered from Halo... What it struck me in Halo 1 to 3 is that the story of that series is the Chief and Cortana, and that relationship, and that's something Halo 4 honestly did better even than 1 to 3. So that's where it counts, and one of the Halo 4 missions I played happened to be one of the better ones where you don't have to hit 3 buttons.
Because unfortunately, I feel like when I remember Halo 4's campaign, I tend to just remember that Pelican level where you just go on a gondola and go and press a button and go on a gondola and fight guys while you're going there, press a button and then get on the gondola and come back, and you do that twice. Yeah.
That's not the most fun level. But, I mean, when that game's firing, it's firing on all cylinders, and it's great, and it's awesome. So anyway, there's a lot of great improvements. Halo 2 Anniversary, which I didn't get to play a ton of, though, its sound design has been brought up to Halo 4 levels, which I was also reminded, I do think Halo 4 is the best sound design I've ever heard.
Yeah. Halo 4's sound design is unparalleled.
Yeah. And Halo 2 is now at that level, so that's awesome. But, you also remember playing Halo 1, Original 2, and 3. Those were not slouches in the sound department. It was an evolution. And that all sounds great. So it's just really fun. And more than anything else, it was really fun to play these again, have them all in one place. And there was something, you can't even put into words the emotions of going, when multiplayer worked, getting back into Halo 2 and playing an honest-to-God match of Halo 2 all these years later. And it's just as fun as it ever was. And it's honestly so much more fun to me than a lot of modern multiplayer suites. That and Halo 3, because when it's not about the progression system. It's not about your loadouts. It's just you go in and you play and you have fun and you're just there to play the game. Yeah. And it's so tight and so great. And yeah,
and it's just, everyone fucking jumps in on the same level. Nobody has any advantages. It's just you just have the fucking spawn weapon and 2 frag grenades and fucking go. And, what happened to multiplayer, man?
It's too bad, and you can really watch some of the evolution of multiplayer in this set. It's interesting.
Yeah, especially since they skip Reach. 4 probably is almost weirdly jarring because the steps that 4 make a lot more sense when you see what Reach did to the multiplayer. Whereas if you just went from Halo 3 to Halo 4, you're like, what the fuck? This is really different.
And I like Halo 4 multiplayer a lot. I think it's a really good multiplayer suite. Yeah. But you do look at Halo 2 or 3, and I would prefer to play that because of the But it was fun. I mean, it was so cool to do this. And honestly, also, Thomas and I just spent a lot of time doing what we did way back in the day, which was just playing Halo 1 and 2 multiplayer, offline on our own, just kind of one-on-one.
Pistols, hang them high,
Yep.
Halo 1, infinite grenades.
It's awesome. It's awesome. It's magical. It just... There's nothing like it. It's great. And it was just fun to go through all the Halo 2 maps and revisit them again, because those are the best maps ever. And Halo 3 is just a teensy bit behind.
Yeah.
Those are great too. And I just had fun. Honestly, I took like an hour and just walked through some of the maps. And to see them in 1080p and in 60 frames per second, it's really, really cool. Because it speaks to the art design of these games that obviously Halo 2 is an old fucking game.
Yeah.
But you can look at it now and it looks good. It's a good looking game.
Did you play any of like the Halo 2 anniversary multiplayer thing where they like remade some of the maps?
Yes,
and
stuff? I have a theory about why the Master Chief Collection isn't working, and it actually plays in with this. That is a much more substantive mode than they've told us about in marketing.
Yeah.
Those 6 maps are really cool. They've got multiple kinds of modes with them. You can play them in a version that looks more similar to the classic maps, or in a version that's a little more revamped. They're more than just remakes. They've done a lot of like reimagining with them, which is cool. The art design is really interesting, and I think it points towards probably where Halo 5 is going, because the multiplayer modes they have in there, which we played online a little bit and offline, are like kind of maybe an in-between between Halo 4 and 5, where I think they've pulled back on some of the progression systems and loadouts, and they've added in some of that old Halo 2-3 feeling of the maps being a little more set, but now they feel a little more alive because we are much later into video gaming history now.
Yeah.
So they're really cool. And then all of them have Forge, which you can do, and there's 3 full Forge maps that are not in those 6 that they didn't tell you about. And they're awesome. They're just big skyboxes, basically, and you can build whatever you want, and Forge has been improved even from Halo 4.
Yeah.
So for those 3, it's really cool. Again, it did not save. That's a bad glitch.
Yeah.
They should fix that. But it was really fun for the 2 hours we built the map before we realized it was all going to be gone the next day. Yeah, so really, really cool. In fact, I think Halo 2 Anniversary, you look at everything they did, including those remastered cinematics, are some of the best video game cinematics I've ever seen. I say remastered; they're completely remade. It's like Blur Studios.
I wonder how much money they paid Blur.
That looks better than several animated films I've seen in the last few years.
Yeah, no, like it's the Blur stuff is fucking incredible.
It's just unbelievable, yeah. And then the campaign obviously looks great. It sounds great. They completely re-recorded the soundtrack, and we actually listened to that in the car on the way to and from Iowa, and it sounded so good. It's awesome. And they even took out some of the more gimmicky tracks.
Yeah, like I always think about the the arbiter level Banshee. Yeah.
You can hear it if you go back to the original version of the game, which is on there. But yeah, so if you really love those tracks, you can hear them in all their repetitive glory.
Yeah.
And the tracks they replaced them with are really cool. It's just shred and guitar. It's great. It's exactly what you want. But anyway, so I think Halo 2 Anniversary very clearly was planned to be its own release. When you look at everything that's in there, the just sheer depth of that new multiplayer suite they put on there, I think they were planning on this being its own thing, and I think at a certain point in the last year, Microsoft said, we need a killer app for the Xbox One. We need it now. How fast can you get Halo 1, 3, and 4 onto this disc? And that probably started with 3 ODST and Reach being on there too, and those probably got dropped at a certain point.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it probably was a case of they were just building out from what they had, and they just didn't finish it in time. Yeah. I have to imagine that's what it is.
And I just realized since ODST and Reach aren't on the disc, there's no firefight.
No firefight.
That's really weird.
I imagine because this is doing well, once they get all the issues worked out, I think they'll bring ODST and Reach to this
as like DLC.
System. As DLC, as just an online downloadable game, as a separate release. You could have instead of a $60, like a $40 spin-off pack that would have the other 2 games. I think they'll do it. They'd be losing money if they didn't, practically, So, should be cool. And it was really fun. And it was fun to play co-op with my brother again, which we've always liked doing. Although, they fixed the issue in Halo 2 where multiplayer co-op on a widescreen TV would be vertical for some reason.
Right, yeah.
They fixed that.
Yeah. They
did not fix the thing in Halo 3 and 4 where they all appear in a tiny, 4x3 display.
Right, yeah, they changed the aspect ratio. Yeah.
I don't like that. Why couldn't... I assume there's a good reason why they couldn't do that, but it's still a little annoying.
Definitely with Halo 2, there were settings that you could fuck with that would fix that, the vertical split screen.
I never figured it out.
Yeah. I definitely did that at one point, but I never played enough Halo 3 co-op on, the same screen to bother trying to figure out what the fuck that aspect ratio thing is.
I don't think there's any way to fix it. It's just weird, because if you go...
What if they did that to, try to maintain the frame rate or something? Because,
maybe.
Most games, when we went to HD, frame rate just went to shit on split screen.
Yeah. And the frame rate is good. It's up around 60 in split screen on 3 and 4. On 1 and 2 Anniversary, it does drop down.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah,
but not bad. I mean, playing Halo at 30 frames per second is still just fine.
Yeah.
That's how we played it for years. Yeah. It never goes below 30. It never goes to a point where you can't play it. Unlike another game we're going to talk about in a little bit.
It would be interesting to play Halo 4 split screen multiplayer on a Forge map and see if that... Because that was the thing. I remember the first time we did that in Halo 4, it was like, oh, fuck. Like, this frame rate is literally in, like the teens, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this frame rate is completely unplayable. Like, I can't believe this game shipped.
Yeah. I saw a little bit of that when we were playing Forge on the same screen on those Halo 2 Anniversary maps. When things got heavy or one of us went out from the Orb mode into actual Spartan mode, it would get a little rough for a second, but it was not unplayable. So maybe they made it better, but I don't know.
It was always fun when you did that on Halo 4 with the split screen Forge multiplayer, and like you would just like turn the camera away from the center of the map, and your like frame rate would just like exponentially increase the fewer Forge items you had on screen.
Yeah, so I don't know what to say about the Master Chief Collection. I love it. I think it's awesome, and I think it's got problems, but they are working to fix it. It did, it got better over the course of us playing it this weekend because they patched it and I saw improvements. Mm-hmm. And they did a bigger patch that I have not gotten to play yet because my brother has the Xbox One. But anyway, so if it's not working for you at all, I would understand your frustration.
Yeah, like I would recommend, because I have not seen anything indicating like that patch has fixed the major issues for most people. Like I would recommend like being very cautious in buying it right now and maybe waiting to see, because I think there's a good chance right now, unless you're only interested in campaign, or that generally seems to work for most people. But if you really want to play a lot of online multiplayer, it seems like the consensus is you should probably kind of avoid it for right now, because it might be really, really incredibly frustrating for you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so yes. But my time with the Xbox One, and with the Master Chief Collection in particular, kind of won me over on this console. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting. And they had a really good sale on Black Friday on the Microsoft Store.
Yeah.
I bought an Xbox One.
Nice. Are you going to bring it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It has not arrived yet.
Yeah.
But it's coming.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was going to be here.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was the lead up. I thought that's where I was going to go.
Yeah.
Because I obviously, like, if I don't have to pay any money, I really want to fucking play the Halo Master Chief Collection. So,
yes.
Fucking great.
Look, I couldn't resist. And here's a couple of reasons. And I've thought it through heavily, and I think I'm being slightly responsible with my money.
Yes.
I know I'm not being fully responsible.
We're buying video games, man. There's nothing responsible about that shit. I'm not... Anyone who makes fun of you finding the Xbox One, fuck them. Like, fucking great. Fantastic. This is the best decision you have ever made.
Thank you, Sean.
Buying the Xbox One and bringing it up here.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Well, because here's what I was thinking. I love Halo, and I realized, I think, partially because Destiny was not the masterpiece I was kind of hoping it would be. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of fun with it, but that's not a series that's going to live with me like Halo.
Yeah.
Halo,
especially not with the multiplayer.
Yeah, the Master Chief Collection is definitely going to keep me around for a while. Mm-hmm. And I think Halo 5 looks great, and I think the fact that they are doing a beta test a full year out from release means I don't think that game will have these problems with it launches.
Probably not, yeah. Because it is important to keep in mind with the Master Chief Collection, like, what they did is kind of unprecedented. Like, even... like, obviously, Sony in particular has done a lot of HD collections with the PS3, but, like, they didn't do the thing where it's like, all these games run under the same menu. Like, those were, like, you back out and, like, reselect which game. Like, you back, like, completely out of the executable and, like, run a new executable. Right. Whereas, like, all of those are completely in-house under, like, the same menu system.
And Halo 5, by the time it comes out, will be on a mature platform. You know? They will have had time to learn what the Xbox One can and can't do.
Yeah.
And I think some of the things they're doing sound pretty exciting with Halo 5.
I've watched a lot of videos of the Halo 5 beta, like, pre-public beta stuff.
And they are putting the beta out at the perfect time. Mm-hmm. It's right in the middle of winter break when I have nothing else to do. Yeah. It's going to be great. So I'm excited for that. Also, just like my brother and I love playing games together, and we can't right now because I have a PS4, he has an Xbox One, and I think the majority of the kind of games we would want to play will either be Xbox One exclusives or will be on Xbox One. Yeah. So this way we can play games together online. That'll be good. And the other reasons, like I stated, I think it's a good console and it's got some interesting things. So I'm really excited to get it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you to get it too.
Yeah. Let me tell you about the deal I got on it.
Okay,
it's pretty good. They had the Assassin's Creed bundle, which is the Xbox One without Kinect, because I'm not buying the Kinect. That's stupid.
You should fucking buy a Kinect. You should fucking buy a Kinect. You're getting this thing, you should absolutely buy a Kinect.
I could buy 2 games for that.
Then what 2 games? Like, you're already getting Halo. What other games do you want?
Grand Theft Auto 5, Dragon Age, I don't know, whatever.
Like, I got Dragon Age.
Okay.
You can play that copy on the PS4.
Sounds
you should
good.
fucking get a Kinect, dude. You should so fucking get a Kinect.
One day I might, for the
Yes.
comedy value, but we'll see.
I want to see how well that thing works. God damn it.
I was trying to shop as cheap as possible, but this was brand new Xbox One with so it has Assassin's Creed 4 and Unity. So I'm going to play Unity and see what the fuck that's like, because that's going to be funny.
That should be interesting.
Anyway, so it's got that. It was $330, which already that's a really good deal for a new console with 2 games.
Yeah, for the console that launched originally at $500. You know, like they're getting really aggressive with their price drops.
Yeah, and then they gave you a game for free, and I got the Master Chief Collection, which was the only game in the Microsoft Store that wasn't discounted. So I got the best deal I could. That was a full $60 discount. Got that, and then I got a year of Live for $35.
Nice.
Not on Microsoft. I got that somewhere else. But,
Fuck!
Yeah.
I'm going to have to fucking subscribe to Xbox Live.
No, you won't.
Oh, I will not.
Because if one person has Live privileges on the Xbox One, everyone has it.
Oh, fucking thank God.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Great.
Yeah, Thomas and I were able to play with both of us signed into our own profiles.
Nice.
Yeah, so I've got that coming. So for $390, I got all of that. So I think that's a pretty good deal for a new console.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that somebody sells the Kinect for like dirt cheap on eBay?
You can look it up and let me know.
I so want to see how that thing works, you know?
I kind of felt the same. It's just that when I looked at like $330 versus $430,
it's hard to argue with the numbers, but fuck, man.
Yeah. Well, one day, no one will be buying Kinects, and they'll just have to discount them so low.
Yeah, you could probably just, like, root through someone's trash can and find one.
Yeah. No. But yeah, anyway, so I'm really excited for it to come. I think it's going to be cool. It's kind of funny, the Xbox One physically is the biggest console I have ever seen. It is bigger than the original 360. I don't know if it's bigger than the original Xbox, because I never had one of those. It is a fucking monster of a system.
The original Xbox was pretty bulky.
Yeah, it's a monster of a system, but it looks really cool. It's really actually kind of nice looking. It looks like something from Halo, like a UNSC object, is what it looks like to me. Like when they make the actual Halo 5 Special Edition, that will be totally unnecessary, because it already looks like a Halo object.
You just slap the Oni logo on it, and it's like, there you go.
Indeed. So, yeah. So we'll see. And honestly, I do think Xbox One has had more exclusives I've been interested in this year.
Yeah, they've definitely had a few more exclusives this year than Sony did. Yeah. I'm curious about Sunset Overdrive in particular.
Yeah. So I'm excited. Xbox One. Yeah. Honestly, I just want to use that controller more. I really like it.
Oh, did you watch the Halo Nightfall thing?
No, not yet.
Yeah. I'm curious how that is.
I have no interest in it. I will watch it now that I have an Xbox One. I have, I'm not interested in that kind of stuff, but we'll see if it's interesting.
I'm just curious to see how it is. Did you ever watch the Forward Unto Dawn thing?
No.
It's pretty good.
Okay.
I think it's worth a watch.
Yeah. I just, with all those spin-offs from games, like that kind of stuff, it just never usually interests me. I did hear good things about Forward Unto Dawn. I just never watched it. Yeah. So anyway, more Halo in my life. Halo, I thought I was done with you. I can never be done with you. Anyway. Another thing I know I can never be done with, because I spent $80 goddamn on this Persona set. Anyway,
sitting right there.
Persona Q.
Hand me that box.
Yeah.
So, look at that.
Well, can I just show it first? Because I'm going to talk about what it is. So, Persona Q, Shadow of the Labyrinth, Persona spinoff, came out last Tuesday. Obviously got it because I have a 3DS and I love Persona. This was one of my most anticipated games of the year. I got the special edition, which is called the Wild Cards Premium Edition. So it's a nice big box. This is a pretty nice premium edition for a game, because the normal retail price of the game is $50. This was $80, and I think what you get is really pretty much worth the price. So the box, as Sean's been looking at, it's a nice box. It's actually nicer material than just cardboard. It feels kind of nice. The artwork is really nice. So I was kind of unexpected. I thought it was just going to be like you would throw the box away or something, but it's not. And then inside, let's go over what you get, because it's pretty cool. You get the game, obviously, with the original 3DS box. It's just a 3DS box, but there it is. You get a set of tarot cards. This is fun because if you know Persona, Sean wants these. They're actually really nice. They're on really nice.
This was the thing that when I saw the special edition, I was like, that would be cool to have.
Yeah, because obviously if you've played Persona, you know the tarot cards you see them all the time. So it's nice. This is half of the set. I guess you got the other 11 if you bought Persona 4 Arena Ultimax through pre-order.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I have half of them, but aren't they nice cards? They're like they're big and they're on nice card stock.
I kind of wish that they would just sell a full tarot deck that has all the wand and coin and sword and whatever cards that 3 had. Yeah.
It'd be pretty cool. So you got those cards. You have an art book, which I like. It goes through all the characters, and you get to see their new chibi art. It has a little description of them. And then in the back, it has some of the original design concepts. It shows you like a full view of some of the areas in the game. And it's got like the poster and whatnot. It's also on nice quality paper, so I like that art book. That was actually more interesting than I thought it would be.
This thing is well made.
Yeah. Then you got the CD. Obviously, this was, I think, the most exciting part for a lot of people. It's a little disappointing. It's only 4 tracks, about 20 minutes of music, but it's really good 20 minutes of music.
It's kind of like Persona 4 on the PS2 came with a soundtrack CD that was like basically half of the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's nice, and I think the coolest thing about this soundtrack is they're not the songs from the game, they're remixes or new special mixes.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is nice. So it's got like the main theme of the game that like plays at the beginning, and then the battle theme, and they're like extended remixed versions of them, and they actually sound better, I think, for listening on their own than the songs from the game. In the game, the music is fantastic and it's really fun to listen to, but I don't just sit down and listen to the Persona 3 or 4 soundtrack all the way through.
Yeah.
I like listening to the remixed versions. The what do they call those? The
reincarnation albums.
Reincarnation albums, yeah. I can't keep track of all the weird fucking words they use. Anyway.
It's understandable.
Yeah, so this is kind of like a reincarnation mini album, and it's really nice. And it's got 2 other songs that are good too. So the soundtrack is awesome, and it's got the Persona 3 and Persona 4 hero on it, who look badass, even in their chibi forms. And then my favorite part is it came with a case for your 3DS XL. It's really nice. I'm using this now. This is what I use for my 3DS now, because normally I just take my 3DS around with me, but in my backpack I do worry sometimes it could get scratched or something. So it's nice to have this case. On the front, it's got the logo, some colors. On the back, it's got all the characters, which is nice. You open it up, got a nice zipper, and inside it's got Teddy and Koromaru.
Yeah.
And then a little pouch for your games or headphones or whatever. It's a really nice case. This would probably be a $20 case on its own if you bought it. So I really like it. I've been using this case a lot. So that definitely makes it worthwhile for me as a premium edition. I would certainly rather have this than like a season pass of DLC or something.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Because at least with like this, you know what you're getting with like the season pass. It's like, oh, well, it might be like 3 missions and a fucking strike. Oh,
or in the case of Assassin's Creed Unity, they refund it and give you a game. I don't know. Anyway, yes. So Persona Q, that's the set. And the game itself, as I said to Sean earlier today, Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth is better than it has any right to be. Because this is fan service the game. That's what it is in short. It's the Persona 3 characters and the Persona 4 characters come together and they have to solve a new case and explore a labyrinth. And, you know, you would think I kind of was expecting it would just kind of be a fun, silly, all the characters get together and you do some dungeon crawling and it's interesting and fun and fan servicey. And it has all of that and it scratches, you know, the fan service itch. But it does more than that. It is a really fantastic game on its own right, and more than that, it's a good Persona game. It's not in the vein of Persona 3 or 4 where you have your social links and your big sweeping story and all of that. But I think the story is more advanced than I thought. So, for instance, they gave a lot of thought to where this happens in the chronology. So you can pick at the beginning if you follow the Persona 4 or Persona 3 perspective.
Yeah.
I picked Persona 4 because I think for a kind of sillier, lighter game like this, I wanted to spend more time with maybe Kanji and Rise and people like that.
Chie.
Because Persona 3 makes me think of the night I spent sobbing in the corner of my room.
Right.
Let's be honest. Yeah. So anyway, even though Persona 3 is a really funny game also, obviously. So anyway, pick the Persona 4 story, and it happens on the day of the cultural festival.
Of course.
So before the end, but when all the characters are still together and all there. And Persona 3, I'm not sure when it happens in their timeline. They haven't mentioned that yet. But it also happens before the end. So all the characters...
Like it must be some sort of like time warp thing, because that Persona 3 is like 2 years or something before.
Right. So they even pay attention to that, and sort of, you know, Margaret and Elizabeth get together. So they kind of, and Margaret knows what's going to happen to Elizabeth as a result of what happens in Persona 3, and she's kind of debating whether or not to tell her. So not only do they get to have all the jokes with all the characters being together, they also consider where are the characters at in their lives, and how would meeting each other at this point affect them. Like, there's some really interesting stuff where Ken is still debating whether or not to kill Shinjiro at this point in Persona 3.
So for Persona 3, from their perspective, it's set before Shinji dies? Huh? That's interesting.
So it's kind of earlier in the game. So Shinji hasn't died yet. Ken is still mad at him. And Yosuke kind of understands something about Ken and that need for revenge. Because Yosuke is still grappling with the anger over his, I forget who's the name of the first victim in Persona 4, but the woman he was in love with who dies, and he is kind of, Yosuke is still at that point in Persona 4 where he's very angry. Saki. Saki Senpai. He says that like 500 times.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the kind of thing it does that I think is really interesting.
Yeah, because that is interesting, because Persona 4 Arena obviously has some of the Persona 3 characters crossover with Persona 4 characters, but for them, it's set, like, they're like 5 years or whatever, how many years older the Persona 3 characters are. So, like, their relationship is very different because they're like, you know, been through the shit already. Whereas it would be very interesting to see both of the cast together, like, while they're in their, like, prime of their sort of, like, individual character developments.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of jokes about, you know, like, them not understanding, like, the Persona 4 characters not understanding the midnight hour, and the Persona 3 characters trying to figure out what it means to go inside the TV.
Does, like, at one point, do the Persona 3 characters try to summon their personas, and then, like Narukami just has to, like, stop them, like, with this horrified expression on their face, like, why are you putting a gun to your head? There's so much to live for! Stop it!
It's not that dramatic, but there is the requisite, they're horrified about the gun thing.
Yeah.
So all of that is in there. And it is, I mean, predominantly it is a fun and funny game, but it just makes such good use of the characters in the story stuff. Like, the interplay between the Persona 3 and 4 casts is wonderful. The interplay within the cast is awesome still. I think there's a couple cases where I feel like they've simplified characters a tad too much. Like, Chie obviously talks about meat all the time.
Yes.
And she should. She is Chie. But why is she not talking about kung fu movies? They've oversimplified that a little bit. I think Chie is a little more complex than just her meat fetish.
Yeah.
So it's like that sort of thing. But then there's a lot of other fun stuff. Like, so you have Margaret and Elizabeth, who are your two Velvet Room aides.
Yeah.
And I realize that this conversation makes no sense to
fuck
people.
it, dude. We've been playing Persona music at the beginning of this podcast for years now.
Yeah.
If people haven't caught on, it's too late.
Yes, indeed. Anyway, so Persona, so you've got Margaret and Elizabeth, and it's awesome to see their interplay, but you also meet their younger brother, Theodore.
Yeah, Theodore, who's from the Persona 3 Portable.
He is?
Yeah, because I think if you play as a female protagonist, you get him instead of...
Interesting, okay. Yeah. I was kind of assuming...
He's definitely been around for a bit.
That's interesting. I did not know about Theodore. He is new to me, but he's a wonderful addition to the universe, or if he's been there before, as you say. He's just a wonderful part of it. Their interplay with him is fantastic. Those two sisters and the brother, their interactions are just kind of the best part of the game to me
because
so far.
It's always weird because, like, Margaret and Elizabeth are such different characters, and you never see them interact even if they're sisters before, so yeah.
And so all the character stuff is great. And talking about the game mechanics, honestly, if I wanted to get into everything, it would be like describing Persona 3 or 4.
Yeah.
This game has that similar level of depth. It's just in a different way. It doesn't have that split between Social Link's real world and the dungeon crawling Persona.
So I think this is the point that we should mention for people who maybe don't know a lot about Persona Q specifically, is that it is made by the company that makes this, like, pretty well known in Japan series of games called Etrian Odyssey, which are like this dungeon crawler franchise. So the gameplay is basically that, with, like, the Persona character stories on top of it.
Yes, although the gameplay has been adjusted to suit Persona a lot more than I think they were advertising earlier, or that we knew about. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you don't know, Etrian Odyssey is kind of, its hook is it's a Nintendo DS and 3DS series where you go through labyrinths and dungeons, and you have your battles and your random encounters and all that, and you have the treasure chests. Yeah. But the real hook is that you have to draw your own map on the bottom screen. Mm-hmm. And I have not played an Etrian Odyssey game before. I guarantee I will now, because Persona Q is that good and has sold me on those mechanics. This is by far easily the most fun I've ever had doing dungeon crawling in a game. Easily.
Yeah.
This puts stuff like old Final Fantasy to shame. Like just walking through a dungeon and waiting for random encounters. Mm-hmm. I could never do that again, I think, after playing this, because the added fun of having for one, the labyrinths are just so well designed, and they're so creative, and the art direction is so fun, the music is so great, the atmosphere is just awesome. But then you also have the mapping mechanic, which really gets you engaged, because you're not just wandering around hoping you'll remember where to go. You're drawing your own map. You're in control of your own fate in that way. They've given you a lot of tools. It's really intuitive. It sounded a little daunting to me at first. Mm-hmm. And it took a little while to learn it, but once you do, it really becomes just instinctual, and you draw your map, and you get really engaged in it. And what's kind of nice is that if there's certain things you want to remember in a certain way, you can mark them how you want to. You're not at the game's mercy on that. So that's fun. And then within that, still, they have a lot of kind of puzzle elements that are in those labyrinths. So there's this thing, and I don't know if this comes from Etrian Odyssey or not. I imagine it does, but this is like the Persona equivalent of it.
Yeah.
These things called FOEs in the labyrinth.
Yeah.
Foes. They have a funny name for it in Persona 2.
Yeah, I think because I saw some videos of Etrian Odyssey a while ago, and those like FOEs were definitely in there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and the FOEs are like these big bosses that kind of roam around the maps, and you don't want to fight them because you really can't beat them if you fight them. You're not necessarily going to lose because you can escape pretty quick, but if you tried to fight them, you would probably lose.
Yeah.
So you don't want to run into them, and the way they move through the map creates problems for you, and they're different characteristics, and it's different on like each floor, each labyrinth. That creates certain puzzle elements for you to get through this labyrinth, which is again where your map comes in handy, and then all the other mechanics like the treasure chests and the power spots where you get extra items. It's also kind of a loot management game because you have a set number of item slots.
Yeah.
And and that includes what you bring in, like your medicine and your go homes and your
chewing souls.
Yeah, all of those. They don't have chewing soul in this game, as far as I've seen. Although SP management is really important.
Yeah.
Anyway,
as it should be.
Yeah. So they have all the Persona items, and you want to go in well stocked because that's your RPG impulse, right?
Yeah.
But if you go in too well stocked, you can't take all your items with you. You get from battles and whatnot, and you need those because you sell those to get money. That's how you get money: is you get your loot and then you sell it, and then that's also how Theodore in his workshop. You sell him the materials, you get money, and then he'll make weapons for you based on those materials, and you'll buy them back from him. And it's a really nice system, but it definitely creates this tension where you have to know, like, okay, I think I can go into the labyrinth with 1 go home and 3 remedy beads or something.
Yeah.
Or revival beads, not remedy beads. Anyway.
There could be remedy beads in the game?
Yes, there aren't. It's revival beads. But anyway, so that's a really interesting system. It's just so compelling, and that's before I even mentioned the battles. And the battle system is fantastic. It's easily as good as it is in Persona 4. Maybe better, maybe more interesting in some ways. It's the same kind of thing as in Persona where you're exploiting enemies' elemental weaknesses.
Yeah.
But they've added a lot onto it. So everyone has one set persona this time. You are not the wild card anymore. Everyone now has a wild card element to them, though. So they have their set persona. So, like for the Persona 4 protagonist, it's Izanagi.
Yeah.
Chie has, I forget the name of her, persona, but whoever it is.
Yeah.
You have those set. And then everybody can have one sub persona. And you get personas as you go through the labyrinth, kind of like you do in Persona 4, where you get a card at the end of matches if you fulfill certain requirements. Yeah. And so your sub persona augments your main persona's abilities, and you still have the Velvet Room where you can do your fusions, and they've come up with kind of ways to supplement the social link thing where that social links would give you your fusions more power. Now what you can do is this called the sacrifice spread, where you can, if you have junk personas, you can sacrifice those and give your personas extra XP.
Okay.
There's a lot going on here, but I'm trying to simplify it. So anyway, if your personas and your sub-personas, and you can have 5 characters in your party, and you have a front row and a back row, so it's a lot of layers onto that.
Yeah.
But it's really fun. And it has a lot of the same Persona mechanics, where obviously all the move names are the same. All the enemies are ones you're going to be familiar with from other Persona games.
Which is weird flying hablaries or whatever, like the tongue guys.
It's good when you remember that the birds are vulnerable to wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So you have all of those. Their attacks are similar on you. But it's a little different because you're using your same abilities, but you have to think a little more. For one, the enemies are stronger, and they take a lot more to defeat. And exploiting elemental weaknesses is actually even more important here than it was in Persona 3 or 4, which may sound weird, but you could have
like the crux of the
It is the crux, but you would still maybe have a character like a Chie who you would put in just as your physical combatant.
Sure, yeah.
You really don't want that this time. You want to make sure Chie has, if you're using Chie, has a sub-persona who can use Bufu or something to augment that.
Yeah.
Because if you get an elemental attack and you exploit a weakness, then you go into a boost mode. And with boost mode, on the next attack, you don't use SP or HP to use your attacks. So you can chain this in really interesting ways if you're careful about it. You go out of boost mode if you get hit, but if you're careful about it, you can get free, revivals of characters and free dias and those sorts of things, in addition to free attacks, because SP is there's not a lot of it in this game. You have to be really careful with it. So it's a really, really deep combat system. The battles are really fun because of it. And it feels like Persona. It feels like maybe almost an evolution of the Persona battle system. I mean, honestly, everything in this game is so well implemented. into the general Persona aesthetic and gameplay style, if I didn't know this was a crossover with Etrian Odyssey, I would maybe just assume this was an evolution of the Persona style, you know? Like, this is what they would do to beef up the dungeons in the absence of social links.
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting. I mean, I do think this game, on the dungeon level and battle side, is probably more fun and engaging so far than it was in Persona 3 or 4 for me.
Because it is kind of interesting because, you know, I've played a bit of Persona 2 and I kind of fell off it, but I played all of Persona 1, and they were more Etrian Odyssey-y in the sense that it was a lot more just like going into dungeons and it was more that kind of battle system. Yeah, it's like it would be cool if they almost like went back and remade those games with this system.
Yeah,
to be able to, like, since those games didn't have the social link stuff, to be able to like flesh out that.
I should mention this does look like Persona 1 or 2 in the dungeon in that you're in first person mode. Yeah, going through on a grid.
Like yeah, you make a really cool footstep noise when you walk.
I don't think so.
Because in Persona 2 in particular, it was just like a really cool just like you're like, yeah, you're sprinting down the hallway.
That's awesome.
It's cool.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like that. But you're also moving grid like piece by piece. So, but it's very strategic. It's really fun. And if Persona Q were just the Labyrinth and all of that, and with some cutscenes interspersed, that would be fun and that would be worth it. But they've gone even further than that because there's a lot of systems at play within that. So you might remember in Persona 3 and 4, if you go to the Velvet Room and you talk to Elizabeth or Margaret, they will give you requests.
Yes.
And those were pretty dry. They weren't narrative based. You just went and got something and you gave them to...
The only good ones were in Persona 3 when like you would take Elizabeth out on dates. Those were great.
Those were pretty great. But those also didn't require you to like do something in the world. But now the requests are a little different. They're all very story based. Like a character in the game will have a request. That'll initiate a cutscene. You talk to them, then you'll have to go do things. And sometimes it can be simple, like you have to go into a dungeon and find something, and you'll have scenes with the characters. So it triggers a lot of good character interaction, which is fun. But it'll all sometimes do like these whole mini-games things, which are fascinating. Like, my favorite part of Persona Q so far was one of the requests I did. This was like a solid 40 minutes of gameplay. I solved a mystery with Naoto.
No, cool.
She's trying to solve a mystery of someone stole Chie's meat pudding.
Of course.
And so Naoto, obviously, she thinks it's kind of silly, but she's the great detective. She wants to solve the case.
And of course it was Akihiko.
It was not Akihiko.
That's what you think.
Anyway.
Maybe you didn't solve that mystery.
So Naoto kind of gives you her list of assumptions she has and what they know happened, and then you using that, you interrogate people, and you try to figure it out, and then you can, like, you know, identify the burglar and then the culprit, and more stuff happens from that. That was just insanely fun, and I imagine there's more of it, and I hope there is. In fact, right now I've got a couple of requests I unlocked doing things in the Labyrinth that are based around certain characters that I'm really excited to get out of the Labyrinth and go do those. So it's this great balance where it's not the same as you go out of the dungeons and do like social links and live your life, but you do come back out and there's a lot of story and character-based stuff to do.
There's something to break up sort of just going through dungeons.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's all of that. And then just, you know, whenever you go out of the dungeon, it's just, I find it engaging to go through all the inventory systems and do all that, because I'm kind of a nerd for that, and I like that side of things. And it is really rich and interesting here. I mean, the money management is significant, because every time you go to the heal station where Elizabeth works, it costs more money. Every single time. So you want to be careful about that, too. Like, you can't just go every 5 steps of the Labyrinth, go back, save, and heal. Yeah. And you can't save in the Labyrinth. So I have wiped once because I just did something foolish, and they said, there's a really strong enemy here. You sure you don't want to go back and save? I'm like, I've got this.
Yeah, fuck you, really strong enemy, whatever.
I did not have it. I lost an hour of progress. That's the only time.
Oh, that's what you get.
Yeah, and it super sucks when you've been drawing a map and you lose your map. Anyway, so... But it's a really, really fantastic game. The only real disappointment so far is there are a few more recasts in the voice cast than I would have liked.
Like who?
Well, in Persona 4, I'm just going to grab the box. It's got all the characters on it. Obviously, you, Narukami... Oh, this I have to talk about. This is stupid. At the beginning, you have to input the Persona 3 character's name and the Persona 4 character's name.
Yeah.
Like you do in all the games. There is not enough space to write you, Narukami.
What?
There's not. You can write Makoto Yuki. You cannot write you, Narukami.
Huh. What did you do?
I wrote you Sama because they never use your last name.
Sure, yeah.
Because here's what happens is I gave him like just kind of a different name, and I played about half an hour of the game and it didn't feel right, so I restarted, and I realized they were just using his first name, so I'm like, as long as I get the you in there, I'm okay. But it's funny because Mitsuru always calls you by your last name, so she just calls me Sama. Other than that, though, it's okay. So Makoto, luckily, I got his real name in there. That's such an oversight. I don't understand
really
what happened.
Weird. Yeah.
Maybe in Japan, like, the character... I don't know. It's got to be different.
I mean, it would be,
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, because you wouldn't input it in English characters, but...
Right. So anyway, let's see. Kanji is recast. Troy Baker did not come back for this.
Yeah.
However, it's a guy who sounds so much like Troy Baker, I would not have known that if I didn't read that going in. So that's a...
It's weird that, like, this is like the one game of this year that Troy Baker isn't in.
Yeah, and I guess he gave an interview and just said this was, like, he couldn't work it into his schedule.
Yeah,
but
which makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, he's literally been a voice in, like, I have not encountered him in Dragon Age Inquisition. He's probably in there somewhere.
Yeah.
He must be. He's in, like, every other game I've played this year.
So Kanji's recast. Naoto is recast. That one disappointed me. She is, and it's the, she gets the right general atmosphere of the character, but it doesn't. The Naoto voice in Persona 4 was so awesome.
It's actually, as I remember, because I remember hearing about these recasts a while ago, and then when that happened, I learned that nobody, like, the public does not actually know who Naoto's voice actress is, because that was never, she's not in the credits.
Yeah.
And so that information was never released.
It's obviously
so maybe she's not even human.
And that's the biggest disappointment, because honestly, Naoto so far has probably had more dialogue than anyone else.
Yeah.
And it's a good, I don't want to say like it's a bad performance or a bad voice, but it doesn't have that same spark that Naoto in Persona 4
It's like when
had.
they recast Chie, and it's like, old Chie wasn't that great, but god damn it was Chie.
But old Naoto was great.
Yeah,
that's the
old
difference.
Naoto was really great. Is there an option to use Japanese language, or is it only...
I think it's only English. I've been to the configuration screen. I didn't look at it heavily, but I don't think there's an option.
Because
I don't think that would fit on the 3DS.
No, that's actually a good point.
And I actually want to talk about that. The graphics in this game are great, but they look a little over-compressed. There are some times when I just see like artifacting and stuff. I can tell they probably made a game. They're like, this is too big for the 3DS. Compress the shit out of it.
But thinking about Japanese voice options, it just reminded me that like the same friend I have that like I borrowed his 3DS to play a little bit of Super Smash Brothers. He bought one of the new Pokemons, one of the remake ones.
Yeah.
And he's in like one of the Japanese classes, and so he set the language option for like the text to be Japanese, but apparently because you can do that, which is really cool, but apparently if you do that, it sticks that you can't change it back. Like that's one of the first things you pick, and then it fucking stays. So now his game is stuck in Japanese language.
That's too bad.
Well, it's good for him, and now he has a lot of opportunity to practice.
Yeah, that's very true. And, Pokemon is pitched at kids, so you should be able to read most of that.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, and then on the Persona 3 side, a good half of the cast is different. And I know that happened in the Arena games, but I haven't played those yet, so this was new to me.
Well, no, Persona 4 Arena, Mitsuru was the same, Akiko was the same.
Well, okay, let me tell you who's different. Fuka's different.
They changed, thank God. Yeah, she was barely even in Persona 4 Arena.
Okay, Fuka's different, Shinji's different, Ken's different. All three of those are different.
Okay. They were not in Persona 4 Arena, other than Fuka was for like a little bit.
Well, I know they've been changed in Ultimax also, so a lot of Persona fans have played both of these. So anyway, it's a little different. With Fuka, though, I finally understand your point about Chie, which is that I know Fuka's voice was technically pretty bad in Persona 3.
It was awful.
But I have played so much Persona 3, and I feel like Fuka's new actress, I can tell it is a better voice. I cannot warm to it. Yeah. And although I will say, I don't think it's a very good recast. It's a more competent performance, but it's more bland. Like, Fuka's old voice may have been bad, but it had more character to it.
That's almost the exact same as Chie's. It's like, although I think like Chie's original voice actress was a lot better than Fuka's original voice actress, but it was a thing of like, like the new actress is probably like better, and she's definitely a better fit for the part, but like she sounds too generic. Where it's like old Chie was like so unique, and old Fuka had a very unique sounding voice.
And new Chie doesn't. Because I didn't play old Persona 4. New Chie does not sound generic to me at all. But yeah, I get where you're coming from now. Because
it's not the same. It never will be.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think Elizabeth sounds different to me, but I haven't heard if that's a recast yet. Like maybe it's just that the actress doing it maybe forgot how to do it exactly, because I think it's the same performer and it's the same performance style and quality, but it just doesn't sound quite the same to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You would also say that about Igor in Persona 4 because it's the same actor doing
a completely different performance, and it's really shocking when you hear them back to back. Yeah.
So anyway, that's all I think I have to say about it.
What about how do you feel about the new characters? Like
Zen and Rei?
Yeah.
I like them.
Interesting?
Yeah, I like them so far. I think, they have they kind of feel almost like, stir and add water Persona characters in that Rei is, she loves food, she's quirky.
Of course.
Yeah, and Zen is like really intense, and you can tell they both love each other, but they can't quite admit it. But I like them. I think they're good additions, and I have had them in my party the whole time. They're one character in your party. Because they're really strong. They use a lot of elements, and I just think on a narrative level, obviously they're key to this game. So I like having them in there. Yeah. That is the most stressful thing about this game, though. There are 18 characters you can choose from for your 5-person party.
All okay. Maybe like Shinji and Ken are not like lining up in the front of my mind to be like mainlining my cast, but yeah, like choosing between like Chie and Naoto and like fucking Aigis and Yukari and Mitsuru and all the and like Yosuke and Kanji. It's like there are too many fucking great characters. Like it was already hard in normal Persona 4.
Yeah. So it's really tough to choose. The party I kind of settled on is I have you because you can't get rid of your protagonist.
Yeah, and I mean you wouldn't want
to. No, I have Narukami, I have Zen and Rei, I have Mitsuru and Chie, and then I have Yukari doing the healing. So, and that was also partially just because I needed a balanced team too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the characters I have.
I'm surprised you didn't throw Yukiko in there with your weird Yukiko fetish.
She's not wearing glasses in this one.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then.
And Yukari is a better. They're both good as healers, but Yukari is more powerful. So I want Yukari in there.
I like Yukari anymore. Yeah. Anyways, more.
No.
So.
But they're all great. I mean, there's no wrong party in this.
Yeah.
Unless you did Shinji and Ken, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. So it's really cool. It was tough to cut Naoto out of my party because at the beginning I did have her in there, and I love Naoto.
Yeah.
But she was just redundant when I built my new party That's the thing I want to say. I am about 18 hours into the game. I'm on the second Labyrinth. This game is probably going to be anywhere between 60 and 80 hours long.
Yeah.
And I knew this was a Persona game when I realized that the Persona 3 cast did not enter the game until the 9-hour mark.
Good God, yeah.
You have to play 9 hours of this sucker before you get the other cast. And I think I'm playing it a little more obsessively than some people would. I'm doing 100% on every map and everything.
Yeah.
But, if you're paying $80 for a Persona game, you're 100%ing every map too.
Yeah.
I know you are. Anyway, this is a fantastic game. It's awesome. If you don't own a 3DS already, you should for a large variety of games. But if you're a Persona fan in particular, buy it for Persona Q, stay for Super Mario 3D Land and Fire Emblem Awakening and all the other fantastic games that are on that system these days.
Then just silently hate that stupid fucking circle pad
which
nonsense.
You do not have to use in Persona Q at all.
God.
In fact, they don't really let you use it. The only time you use it is for moving to other parts of your map, like to circumnavigate your map. But otherwise, all the navigation is done with the D-pad, all the menu stuff is done with the D-pad. I forget the circle pad is there for this game.
As we all should.
Which, honestly, that's how it is for a lot of 3DS games for me. That's the same in Fire Emblem Awakening. I don't think I ever used the circle pad in that game, because it would be weird. That's a grid-based game. Yeah, so, anyway. This is definitely better than the last 3DS game I bought, which was Fantasy Life. I bought when I was bored one day and wanted a new game to play, and people said Fantasy Life was good. They were wrong. It's kind of nice visually, and it's got some nice music, and I think it's got a good sense of atmosphere, but the gameplay is the most boring, simplistic piece of shit I've ever... I really lost $40 on that. That is irresponsible spending for video games.
Especially because, I don't benefit from it, so it's incredibly irresponsible.
Indeed.
I think if you hadn't spent that, then you would have $40 to just put towards a Kinect.
You're making a compelling...
Which would have been a more valuable purchase, probably.
Man, if only I had bought Fantasy Life physically, I could sell it and get that Kinect.
Yeah.
I could. Anyway, Sean, I hope you get a chance to play Persona Q one day. It's really good.
Yeah, I'll probably get a 3DS at some point.
Yeah.
When the new
just wait for the
out.
new 3DS. So anyway, I think that's all I have to say on that. I'm glad we got to talk about Persona again.
Yeah, and then whenever I get around to getting Persona 4 Arena 2...
Oh, yeah.
I'll be able to talk about that.
Hopefully they do a remastered version for the PS4 and Xbox One, because everyone else is doing it!
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. So let's see, what else is on the outline here? I have some other stuff to talk about, because I promised this on the last podcast, and we didn't get to it, so I feel like I should mention it.
Sure.
After a kind of 2-month break from not seeing movies while I was working on this project at school, I finally am trying to catch up on all my movies for the year. I've been seeing a lot of films. 2014, it turns out, is another really good year for movies, and I'm looking at my top 10 shortlist, and there's 30 films on it, and going to be another competitive year for that. So even for my top 30, which I always do, I'm going to have to cut some really good movies. But yeah, so in terms of what I've seen, I can't go into everything. Honestly, I could have probably 20 movies to talk about, and we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But in terms of big movies, I saw Interstellar. I do think I mentioned that last time because we recorded it the day after I saw it. Again, I will just direct you to jonathanlack.com where I have a full piece on Interstellar. Everything I could have to say about that movie I wrote there. And I've seen the movie again since then, and it really just intensified what I think the movie does great, and the few things I think the movie does not do so great. But I talked about all of that there. So, yeah. You haven't seen Interstellar?
No, yeah,
Okay.
I never got a chance to.
Yeah. Well, I saw that, and then I did finally catch up on Big Hero 6, which came out the same weekend, and that's the new Disney movie. It's kind of a Disney-Marvel crossover kind of thing, because Big Hero 6 is technically a Marvel property. This really is not based on the Marvel comics in any significant way, as I understand it. But Big Hero 6 is a really good movie. I also have a review of that up.
Is there like a weird post-credit scene where like animated fucking Samuel L. Jackson walks in and hires them for the new Avengers?
No, but there is a post-credit scene, and I didn't stay to watch it. I haven't seen it yet.
So maybe that is what happens.
No, I know what happens.
Maybe that's like the secret for Avengers 2, is that they just pop in.
Yeah. No, Anyway, Big Hero 6 is really good. It kind of it came out the same weekend as Interstellar, and I think the cool theme of that weekend is those were two movies about how science is awesome, and if you study science, you're awesome. And that's such a good message for two movies that are making a ton of money. I think that's really nice and encouraging. Big Hero 6, most of its science is bullshit. It's like the fantasy kind of science. Yeah. But it's fun. It's nice. It's a really good movie. It's a very archetypal superhero film. It's Superhero 101. It's Disney Family Film 101. But I think it's proof that it doesn't so much matter what story you're telling as long as you tell it well. Mm-hmm. And this is a really well-told story. It's got great characters, wonderful acting, really nice animation. It's got that problem that most CGI movies do for me where the character models look like plastic. But oh well. We've had 20 years to deal with that. Got to get used to it. Anyway, but yeah, the characters are great. The best character in the movie is Baymax, who you've seen on all the posters. He's the big, white, puffy guy.
Yeah.
And he is, honestly, might be my favorite Disney character in a Disney animated movie ever. He is so awesome. And I say that as someone who really doesn't like a lot of classic Disney animation.
I'm thinking about that and it's like, like maybe, I don't know, the genie from Aladdin. I like him a lot.
Right. I think Baymax is great. It's a really minimalist aesthetic on him and a really good vocal performance and kind of his robot voice. But he's a great character. And the whole movie basically is... So Baymax is the main character, Hero. His older brother invents Baymax as this kind of medicinal robot. He will investigate your injuries and try to heal them and that sort of thing. And after Hero's older brother dies, Baymax activates to try and realizes Hero is in pain, but it's not physical pain, it's emotional. And the whole movie is sort of this extension of Baymax trying to heal on, multiple levels the main character. And so it's a really sweet movie. It's really nice. It's very funny. It's exciting. It's a really good movie. If I had seen this or talked about this before Thanksgiving on the podcast, I would have said it was the perfect movie to go with your family to for Thanksgiving. That's past, but it'll probably still be playing at Christmas.
Sure, yeah.
It's better than the Penguins of Madagascar. I haven't seen the Penguins of Madagascar. Okay. I think I can guarantee you.
I thought when you said that you were going to start talking about that movie, but...
No. But anyway, the main stuff I've been doing with movies lately is the Stars Denver Film Festival happened in November. If you don't live in Denver, this is the Denver Film Society is our big sort of film group here in Denver, and they do a festival every November. It's a pretty big event. It's 2 weeks long. They get movies from all over the world. It's a little weird in terms of other festivals because it takes place in November. They don't get a lot of premieres like a lot of American festivals do because most of the awards movies have already shown.
Yeah.
They had a couple this year. They had The Imitation Game and Foxcatcher and Wild, all of which I'm excited to see. I haven't yet. I wanted to prioritize, so for my festival experience, I really focused on movies that I wasn't going to be able to see anywhere else. And Foxcatcher is already out in theaters. I didn't need to pay $20 to see that at a festival. Anyway, so I got to see a lot of foreign films, a lot of independent films, movies that might come to the U.S. but won't until next year or some other time. So, but a lot of good stuff. All of my coverage is on jonathanlack.com, and that's the main thing I want to plug here. I have like 7 or 8 articles. Some of the movies were talked about in reports where I talked about 2 or 3 movies at a time. Some of them got their own individual reviews. But if you go to jonathanlack.com, I think, the main thing will be the podcast on the top of the page. Yeah. But under that, you'll see the most recent Stars Denver Film Festival review, and that'll link to all the other ones. You can go on the categories side and just go to the most recent film festival link, and it'll take you to all the coverage. I've also tweeted about it profusely. And actually, a lot of the filmmakers retweeted my stuff. That was kind of surreal. Cool. Anyway, but yeah, the film festival was really fun. It was a great experience. It always is. The Denver Film Festival and the places they hosted are cool places. And met a lot of cool people, saw a lot of good movies. Here are a couple films I want to talk about because I'd like to draw your attention to them in case they ever come to your city or
Yeah.
on DVD or something. These will all be out next year probably, but definitely the film of the festival for me was a Ukrainian film called The Tribe. And this is a film, its hook for a lot of people is that it's done at it takes place at this boarding school for the deaf, and it's done entirely in sign language. There's no spoken dialogue, and they don't subtitle anything. So you're not getting anything translated. That is not what makes this movie inaccessible. And I think it's a little weird that people are focusing on the sign language aspect and not the horrific graphic violence and molestation and sexual violence and all the other horrible things that happen in this movie, because this is really a film about criminal subcultures and human degradation, and it is a great portrait of those things. It is harrowing. I could barely tolerate some parts of this movie, and I have a pretty thick stomach for this kind of thing. So yeah, there are moments in this movie, and by moments I mean 5-10 minute stretches, because the whole film is done in long single takes, where you could just hear a pin drop in that theater, and everyone had their hands over their mouths, and it's not just shocking for the sake of being shocking. It has some really interesting things to say about evil and the human condition and criminal subcultures and those sorts of things, and what happens to groups of people when they are outcast and left to fend for themselves. It is a fantastic movie. It'll be on my top 10 this year. It could be number 1. We'll see. It's a phenomenal movie, unlike anything I've seen this year, and really good. I liked the film. The second day of the festival, I saw this French-Canadian movie called Two Doors, Nicole, which means You're Sleeping, Nicole, which I kind of thought I would hate, because I don't like contemporary French movies.
Yes.
They're usually pretty bad. I just will put that out there and offend a whole nation of people.
Yeah, you're just racist.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
I've had to watch a lot of contemporary French films in film school, and I just tend to think they don't give a lot of attention to plot or character logic. Anyway.
Right.
And this people compared this to last year's film Frances Ha, which is really only a surface comparison. They're both about women in their 20s, and they're shot in black and white. I think the movies are completely different other than that, but I understand the comparison. I didn't like Frances Ha as much as a lot of other people did. I loved this movie. This movie, in fact, the more I've thought about it, the more I love. When I first saw it, I'm like, this is a lock for my top 30. We'll see if it gets to the top 10. Now, I would be kind of surprised if it doesn't reach that top 10. I really loved it. It's this very simple but very kind of profound movie about this young woman who's like 22, who is at home for the summer at her parents' house because her parents are out of town, and she's taking care of the house, and she's totally lost in life. It's this portrait of sort of aimlessness, and it's very slow to reveal kind of why she is the way she is, but it's not sort of, maudlin or depressing in that way. It's a very fun and energetic movie with some expressionistic moments, in fact. And she's a very entertaining character, and the actress who plays her is fantastic. And it's just a really nice character study. It's got gorgeous photography. There's been this whole resurgence of black and white photography in the last couple of years in filmmaking, which I think is interesting, but I often haven't thought it worked very well. Frances Ha looked good, but I also thought just some of the settings they used and the way they did lighting, I thought the black and white looked a little awkward to me. I thought that about the movie Nebraska last year. This movie, I didn't think that. This was a perfect use of black and white, and shows why, if you've got the talent to do it, black and white is still a totally valid way of making movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was really nice. I loved that movie. You can read about it.
Do you think that French people know that we've developed color photography? Do you think that they have not realized that yet? It just never made its way over there.
I mean, I've seen lots of color French movies.
Have you?
Yes.
Have you really?
Well, I have the story about when I saw Belle de Jour, and it projected in black and white at my film school, even though it's a color movie, and I did not know that was a color movie.
Maybe it wasn't really a color movie.
Yeah, they could be lying to me. Anyway, this was a film I talked about last year on my top 10, which we talked about on the podcast, the documentary by Joshua Oppenheimer, The Act of Killing, which is about the 1965 Indonesian massacres. And the general consensus on that by me and many others is that that's kind of a landmark documentary, kind of an all-time great documentary. And he's made a sequel to it, which I got to see at the festival, called The Look of Silence. The Act of Killing was about the killer's perspective in the 1965 Indonesian massacres, which is why it was such kind of a interesting and controversial film in a lot of ways. The Look of Silence kind of takes the other tact, where it follows the younger brother of someone who was killed in the massacres, and his kind of journey to try to figure out why this happened and how he can live in Indonesia. And if you don't know, Indonesia, it's basically the people who committed the massacres are in power now. So if you were someone who was affected by that in Indonesia, it's very hard to live in that country because your children are going to schools where they're being taught propaganda that these communists wanted to be killed, and there was a liberation in these massacres. It's a very disturbing situation. The Look of Silence is, I think, even better than The Act of Killing. I think it's fantastic. Just a really moving movie. I thought The Act of Killing horrified me and made me think about things, but it did not have that visceral, emotional impact I get from my favorite films. Look of Silence had that. I was on the verge of, tears in a lot of scenes. It's terrific. It is so interesting. Basically, this main character, this, brother of the victim, is going around and interviewing killers in his town, in his locations, and he's getting bolder and bolder with his lines of questioning as he goes along, and that it's tearing him down and it's tearing these killers down at the same time. And I think it is a phenomenal act of documentary filmmaking. And I'm usually pretty critical of documentaries. I think it's a really problematic form, actually. But this is an example of how you can use it to do something really, really powerful. So that was great. Another French movie I somehow liked, 2 Days, One Night, the new film from the Dardenne brothers, who I usually don't like. And I'm calling this a French film. That's incredibly racist of me. This is a Belgium film. They speak French in Belgium, but they are Belgian filmmakers. This is a Belgian film. Yeah. I'm sorry, Belgium.
Yeah, wow.
And France. And Two Doors to Cold is technically a Canadian movie. So, yeah.
Right. Okay, let's move on.
Good movie. And this is the movie I want to talk about most because
that explains why that screenshot you had down there was in color, though, because it was a Belgian film, not a French movie.
Not a French movie.
Yeah, so my hypothesis, evidence is piling up. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Now, this is a movie I have to talk about because, Sean, you're going to get a kick out of this, and I think a lot of people are. So, this was one of the last films I saw at the festival, Kumiko the Treasure Hunter. This was a movie that premiered back at Sundance, and I have been so excited to see it. This is why I went to the Denver Film Festival. I had to see this movie, and I think it's coming out maybe in February or March, is what the filmmakers said after the film. But this, Kumiko the Treasure Hunter, which is made by David and Nathan Zellner. If you have followed Rooster Teeth, who make Red vs. Blue, you would know Nathan Zellner. He was the voice of Andy the Bomb.
Yes.
And he worked at the company. He was in a lot of their shorts.
The shorts, yeah.
Saw him in person. He is as tall as they always joked about. Indeed.
So.
And as quiet. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, so this is their movie, Kumiko the Treasure Hunter. And it is the somewhat true story of a young 20-something Japanese woman who was obsessed with the Coen brothers' Fargo. And believed this is a true story thing. And went to North Dakota and tried to find the treasure Steve Buscemi buried in the snow and froze to death.
Wow.
Now, that has since been debunked. Not all of that is true, but the Zellner brothers explained in the post-film Q&A, this came out in the early 2000s, this news story, and it was like this great internet urban myth, because what a great story that is.
Yeah.
And parts of it are true. There was a Japanese woman who went from Tokyo to North Dakota for reasons no one understands and did freeze to death in the wilderness. No one really is sure what happened. The Fargo thing was debunked. There was a cop who thought he saw a Fargo connection. That was later kind of rolled back on. There wasn't the evidence to support that. But that's a great story, and that's worth a movie. And this movie is phenomenal. It stars Rinko Kikuchi, who you might know from Babel. She's the best part of that film. Pacific Rim, I think she's the best part of that film, at least as the humans are concerned.
Yeah. No, the best part of that film is the fucking robot dragging a fucking, like a giant cruise hanger and smacking a monster in the face with it. That's the best part of that movie.
That's the best part, although I will say...
Does that happen in this movie?
No. But Rinko Kikuchi is at the heart of the scene in Pacific Rim where they are in space and draws her sword.
Yeah, she draws her sword. Yeah, that's the second best part of that movie.
Right. So anyway, Pacific Rim is a good movie.
Yeah, it is. Fuck yeah,
If you've forgotten, you should go watch it. Anyway, so yeah, she plays Kumiko, and the movie is basically split into two halves. Half of it takes place in Tokyo, kind of charting her life to the point where she would do something this crazy, and then the second half is in North Dakota. And it was shot on location in both places. Looks awesome. It's a really, really great immersive look into contemporary Tokyo, because it's not like the touristy version.
Yeah.
It really feels like you're there. I mean, I haven't been to Tokyo, but this felt a lot more authentic than I think a lot of modern portraits of Japan we get. And it's done in Japanese, which is great. They didn't, cheat and have everyone speak English. Mm-hmm. So, but she's a really fascinating character. She is this woman who is thoroughly broken in some way, and yet the movie doesn't judge her as insane, which would be really easy given the plot of this movie.
Yes, yeah.
But it's not just insanity. There's something I think you really connect with her in this film about, which is that fundamentally to me this movie is about that power movies have over all of us, where they are both entrancing, and I think because of that, very dangerous on some level. This phenomenological distance between what a film is and how we experience it, and what we take from our lives and put into a movie, and how that can come back and feed into our real lives.
Yeah.
And that's a super interesting part of film to me. It's something I've been thinking about more and more. This movie is all about that. I have a full review of this movie. I gave it its own review, and it's actually one of my favorite reviews I've ever written. I got to talk about some really interesting stuff that this movie brought up. So definitely read that. But it is such an interesting movie, and it is so entertaining, and it is so thought-provoking. It's just a lovely, beautiful, fascinating film. And it was cool that, the Zellner brothers were there afterwards to talk at a Q&A, and it was cool to hear from them too, because they've been working on this movie for about 14 years, and a real passion project, and it's great. If you get the chance to see it, I'm not sure what kind of release it's going to have when it comes out next year. So far it's just been playing the festival circuit. I imagine it's going to be a pretty limited release thing, but there's always DVD and there's always the internet at some point, so definitely see it if you can. And, one of the most interesting things I should say, because when I bring up the Fargo connection, and I thought this too, this is not a Coen Brothers homage at all. That's not what this movie is. It's got that Coen Brothers connection, obviously, because of the Fargo link, but that's not what it is. It is totally its own thing, and I think that's the most fascinating thing about it. So,
it's interesting that this movie has come out, so close to
the Fargo
TV series. It's like fucking Fargo, man.
Yeah.
It's coming back in a big way.
Well, because I think we always knew that Fargo made a lot of waves in terms of influence.
Fuck yeah.
But to see people now... But I think that's the thing. We're seeing the generation of filmmakers and writers who were influenced by Fargo finally making their own stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's fascinating. Because that's the great thing about the Fargo TV show, too. It's inspired by Fargo, but it's totally its own thing, too. So, yeah. The more Fargo there is in the world, the better.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Yeah. All right, so that's all of the movies I want to talk about. Obviously, you can go to the website and read about more of them. That's all there, but I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because I did promise it. Sean, anything movie-related you want to talk about?
No, I watched a Zatoichi movie with my dad last night. That
sounds cool.
Yeah, it was good.
Which one?
It was Zatoichi and the Chess Expert. It's shogi, technically, but they just say chess. It's really good. It's one of the better ones.
Sounds good. Oh, can I talk about one other movie thing?
Sure, go ahead.
Because this, obviously, we're going to be talking about The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies pretty soon. I'm actually seeing that movie this week. It comes out December 17th, I think, so we'll talk about it when it comes out in theaters. We'll have a lot to say, because this is the third Hobbit movie.
And we finally get to talk about, the whole trilogy. We get to fucking just, put a cap on it, finally.
Yeah. So that's going to be a big discussion. So I thought I should talk about this here. I did see The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug extended cut.
Right, yeah.
And I talked about the extended cut of An Unexpected Journey last year, so I figure I should talk about this again. That set, the Blu-ray set that has the extended version, I totally recommend because the special features are phenomenal. They're even better than last year. You've got 90 minutes of features about making Smaug, and an hour about making the music, and 5 hours...
a bunch of footage of Benedict Cumberbatch making really funny faces.
It's awesome. It's a great suite of bonus features, and if you're just interested in how Peter Jackson and his team put this together and how they barely finished the movie in time, it's fascinating. I learned some really incredible things watching those bonus features. However, the Desolation of Smaug extended cut, oh my god, it is rough. It is really, really rough. It's not in the sense of it doesn't look finished. It's the same thing they've always done with these Middle-earth extended cuts, where it's very seamlessly integrated. But there's only one scene in the whole extended cut that I think should be there, that was a good addition, and I honestly don't know why they cut it the first time. It's about 30 seconds of footage in the scene in Lake Town where Thorin is trying to appeal to the people of Lake Town and tell them why he should be welcomed and all that stuff. And it's a little moment where someone asks, well, why should we believe you? We don't know who you are. We haven't met you before. And Bilbo steps forward and says, I'm Bilbo Baggins from the Shire, and gives this little speech about how he didn't know Thorin before, but has come to trust him. And Bilbo says, I vouch for Thorin Oakenshield. And I cannot imagine why that moment was cut, because that, so directly sets up the end of the film. With the what have we done. Mm-hmm. Because it really isn't Bilbo's fault if he doesn't say that.
Yeah.
If he doesn't vouch for the dwarves, then it's not fully his fault. He's not fully complicit.
Yeah.
But it also feels like it's another good moment of foreshadowing. So I don't know why they cut that. The other 25 minutes of footage that they added to the Desolation of Smaug, which was already an overlong movie.
Yeah. It's when you say 25 minutes of footage on that movie, that's scary. That's a lot. That's way too much for me.
Because I like the theatrical cut a lot. I think it's not too bloated. I think there's a couple moments that feel like they drag on. Overall, it's a pretty tight cut, but it could be cut down even more.
Yeah.
It does not need more added. And basically what the additions to the Desolation of Smaug extended cut do is they kill the movie's pacing at every single turn. Like the beginning scene where it's Thorin and Gandalf in Bree, and they're talking about things. That scene just goes on and on forever. It's all this extra stuff about Thorin's father, and it's just, you don't really need it, and it just kills. That's a really nice scene, and it kills its momentum.
Yeah.
Then you have all the stuff with Bjorn. They try to do that scene from the book, which I love, where Gandalf introduces all the dwarves to Bjorn, like 2 by 2.
Yeah.
It's a great scene in the book. It doesn't work on film because, to be honest, you'd need like 30 minutes to do that scene properly.
Yeah.
When you try to do it in 5 minutes, it just feels rushed and awkward.
Also, like when it's like right at the beginning of the movie and stuff, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their Bjorn also does not work with that characterization because he's not really a character, he's a monster. Yeah, so that doesn't work. Then the Mirkwood scenes, which I think are the best part of the Hobbit movies outside of the Gollum scene, is totally ruined because the nice, like, tense, taut horror movie stuff in the woods is totally ruined by all these extra extraneous scenes. It just goes on forever. It's like 45 minutes before you meet the elves. The pacing is shot.
Yeah, and then you meet the elves, and you're like, oh, fuck, like, they fucking spent it, like, they don't need any of this shit.
Yeah.
Like, let's move on.
Yeah, so there's all of that. There's some bad scenes near the end. I mean, it's just all of it. The worst editions are probably in Lake Town. They have, like, another 5 minutes with the Master of Lake Town, and as much as I love Stephen Fry, that character is 100% extraneous.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think the scenes they gave him in the theatrical cut, that's the right amount, just to let you know that this character exists and is a foe, but he doesn't need to be his own character.
Yeah.
So that's rough, and by far the most baffling part of this extended cut, and where the majority of the 25 minutes actually comes, is when Gandalf goes to Dol Guldur. There's a whole character there who was not in the theatrical cut, but the scenes are often the same. It's just that character is there now. And that's Thorin's father. And that's bizarre.
Yeah, who is dead.
Yeah.
As we all should know.
Yeah.
That's how we got the map and the key.
So he meets Thorin's father, and there's this bit about how he got the map and key earlier when Thorin's father was crazy. Yes. But now he's alive again in Dol Guldur, and he's crazy, and Gandalf tries to protect him, but then ultimately he just dies, so they can get him out of the movie. It adds a ton to the film. It's kind of bizarre. It doesn't really work. The actor who's playing Thorin's father, I don't think it's his fault, but the character just comes across as really hammy and not interesting. It's a really awkward addition. And I think those scenes are kind of, to me, a little awkward to begin with because they're cutting away from more interesting material.
Yeah.
And they have Azog in them, and Azog's terrible.
Right, yeah.
But anyway,
the Pale Orc.
I was so baffled by this stuff. I actually went back and read some of The Hobbit again and went to the appendices of Lord of the Rings to try to figure out where Peter Jackson was getting this from. Basically what he's doing is Gandalf took a previous trip to Dol Guldur before the events of The Hobbit. And that's actually where all of this happens. They've just moved it up to the Hobbit timeline.
Yeah, because that's how he gets the key in the map. Is that's because that's all the shit, like at the beginning of The Hobbit where he talks about going to the Necromancer's palace and like he finds his father, Thrain or whatever, and he gets the key and map and he has to leave the dad behind, and it's always assumed that Thorin's dad is killed at that point.
Yeah. And basically what happens in Dol Guldur in the Desolation of Smaug extended cut is exactly what Tolkien describes in The Hobbit and in the appendices. Except that the map and key have already been gotten. But everything else happens...
Like, you don't need that.
Yeah. And in fact, I was going through the appendices again, and actually all of that material, even in the theatrical cut, does come from that timeline where Gandalf discovered Sauron was in Dol Guldur before the events of The Hobbit.
Yeah.
He knew all of that already. Which I'm fine with him moving that all up here so they can show it all.
Because there is stuff where he leaves, because part of the appendices does describe what Gandalf does when he leaves the party over the course of The Hobbit multiple times with like the White Council and shit.
Yeah, because what he does
happen.
Yeah, what should be happening at that point in the story in the books is he and the White Council are driving the Necromancer out of Dol Guldur. So
they're setting that up for like that's going to be part of the third movie.
Yeah, which is I'm excited for this third movie, but I'm really curious what the fuck it's going to be structurally.
Yeah.
Because you're going to start with Smaug destroying Lake Town, and you're going to start with getting the Necromancer out, and then you're going to jump into the Battle of Five Armies. I don't know what that movie is going to be as its own cohesive thing, or if it even will be.
Yeah.
It's super bizarre to me. And honestly, watching Desolation of Smaug again, extended cut or no, reinforced to me what a fucking weird ending it has. Because every moment of that movie is basically them winking at you and saying, isn't it gonna suck when Smaug destroys Lake Town? And then they don't do it in the movie!
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah, the end of Smaug is because they add in the whole giant fight scene with the dwarves and Smaug. It's like they kind of kill Smaug, but then it's like, no, he's not dead. It's like, of course he's not dead, because it's not how it, like... He's just like...
It's like filler in an anime.
Yeah, I mean, it is, because it's basically... obviously, because like you were saying, like, isn't a lot of that stuff of that like fight scene was put in after they decided to make the 3-movie split, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what that feels like to me, or that's what it felt like to me when I watched the movie.
Yeah, in fact, it's kind of interesting. In the Unexpected Journey extended bonus features, they did not talk about the split at all. In fact, you could tell they had edited around it, so they weren't mentioning that this had been split into 3 movies. They confront it pretty head-on in the Desolation of Smaug features, and they talk about how they had to expand this middle film and all those things. So I've learned a lot more about the process of it, and it sounds to me like the movie that got the heaviest reworking when they did the 3-film split was this one, the second movie. Which is not what they told us initially. I was on the car trip, I was kind of bored, and so I was going through the old reports from 2012 when Peter Jackson decided to make this split. And what he said then, what the studio said then, what was told to reporters, and in the timeline when all this happened, and I don't think anything they said was true. I'm really curious to see all these 3 movies together, and maybe if Peter Jackson comments on it eventually, because I don't think the reasons we were initially told for this 3-movie split are necessarily the truth. Because he talked a lot about how they were going to make a 3rd film, and that was going to take all the appendices material. But clearly this was all in the building blocks of this film to begin with, when it was 2 films. All that Dol Guldur stuff is not new. They had that shot.
Yeah,
in fact, it's in the original trailer for the Hobbit movies. So
it's like some of the first footage they showed was Gandalf and Dol Guldur.
So I think the answer probably is that their original 2-movie plan, which I should say, the first film was completely edited and almost done when they decided to make this split, and that's why An Unexpected Journey looks kind of rough in parts and doesn't have finished music and things like that and uses a lot of old cues, is because they decided to make that first movie into half of a movie like 3 months before it came out. It was a really rushed thing. And yeah, so it's bizarre to me because I think the answer was probably those 2 movies that they had were probably just too long, and Peter Jackson said, I have too much footage for 2 movies.
Yeah.
But they framed it in a way that made it sound like they wanted to tell more story, but I don't think that's what they were doing. Mm-hmm. So in essence, they stretched it out, but they had to stretch it out even more to do the stretching out.
Yeah, and then they had to put in this weird false climax in the middle for the second movie, where you have to have an action climax, so you construct an action scene for the end of Desolation of Smaug, which is then just like you're just still fighting Smaug at the beginning of the next movie. So it's like that fight scene. I kind of think the fight scene was cool, sort of the choreography, but I always thought that was fucking baffling. Like, why? Like, what is the fuck is this? Because you're just going to have to fight Smaug later down in Rivertown.
Yeah. So I just don't know. I mean, I'm interested in this 3rd movie. I think
I'm still really excited to see it because I have enjoyed these movies even with their problems, but.
And I think the 3rd film could redeem it. It could tie it all together. It's interesting to me, though. Have you seen what the runtime is on this last movie?
No.
It's only 140 minutes.
Huh.
It is very short for a Middle-earth movie.
Yeah.
It's a good half hour shorter.
It's like a normal-sized movie.
Yeah. So I'm just interested. It's going to be interesting.
It'd be funny if, even though it is only like 2 hours and 20 minutes, if they still have 5 endings at the end and keep on fading to black and you're like, what? I'm not sure if you quite earned it this time.
I just want the scene when Bilbo goes back to Bag End and they're selling it, and he has to stop them.
Yeah.
That's a funny scene. Mm-hmm. Anyway, here's what I want, actually. I want Bilbo to feel like a character in the goddamn movie.
Yeah.
I want them to give Martin Freeman more than 5 minutes of screen time.
Yeah.
I want them to fulfill the title of the fucking movie, The Hobbit.
The Battle of the 5 Armies.
Not the dwarves, not the Gandalf movie, it's The Hobbit.
The Battle of the 5 Armies.
Yeah. That's the other thing about this extended cut. You completely forget Bilbo as a character, because all of the extensions have nothing to do with Bilbo. I do like the Unexpected Journey extended cut, because they're all extensions that deal directly with Bilbo, and it makes that movie a better movie. This is not the case. Stay away from that. Anyway, that's movie talk. Let's do a little more movie talk, but this is movie trailers.
Yeah.
Speculation time!
Yes, over 90 seconds of footage.
88 seconds.
Yes, that is, with the unfinished effects and stuff like that. Let's go.
Star Wars 7, The Force Awakens.
Star Wars The Force Awakens.
What the fuck is the title of this movie?
I think it's just Star Wars The Force Awakens. I haven't seen anything that says Episode 7 so far, have you?
What I'm guessing it'll be is in the actual film they'll still have the Episode 7.
Yeah, it'll probably be in the title crawl, but because it didn't say Episode 7 in that trailer.
Yeah. To be fair, though, I went back and looked. Episodes 5 and 6, when they came out, none of the marketing had 5 or 6 in them. It was they were all called Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars: Return of the Jedi.
But that was back then. I feel like that's the episode thing is a much bigger part of Star Wars now.
Yeah.
It still feels weird.
My voice is super hoarse, so why don't you talk about this teaser for a minute and what your reaction was?
Okay.
To the most overhyped teaser of all time.
I don't even really know. Honestly, my reaction was just kind of like, okay. I didn't get super pumped up for it, and I actually when I was about to watch it, even though I haven't been particularly excited for these new Star Wars movies, all of a sudden, the prospect of oh shit, I can actually see some footage, I can see a bit of what they're doing, because I just got up one morning and was looking at Twitter on my phone, and I saw some people talking about it, and I immediately exited out of Twitter because I was like, I don't want to see what anyone's saying about this. I have to watch this trailer immediately, because I think I'm a lot bigger of a Star Wars fan than you are. I am a huge fucking Star Wars fan. I've read Star Wars books. I've played huge amounts of Star Wars games. I've seen the movies over and over and over again.
My Star Wars fandom is I like the first 3 movies.
Yeah.
That's it.
Episode 3 is pretty okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh fuck, I have to see this teaser trailer, because I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and I've been, very sort of cynical about these movies. But even I can't be super cynical in the face of the prospect of actually fucking seeing it. So I immediately got my laptop, watched the trailer. It's 88 seconds. It's done. I was like, oh okay. And I did watch it 3 times in a row. I was like, yeah, no, it's a teaser trailer with some Star Wars stuff. Kind of the lightsaber looks kind of funny, and the Millennium Falcon's in it. And the shot with the X-Wings over the river, that's a really good shot. That's easily the best part of the teaser. That looks really cool. The rest of it, I just thought was there's nothing really cool. Especially because I feel if you're doing a teaser trailer, you need some cool fucking big money shot at the end, and they build up to that. And it's just this, what I think is actually a really awkward, bad-looking shot of the Millennium Falcon with the camera upside down and following it and flying past a TIE fighter. It's well, that's not super exciting. That's you need some cool fucking reveal for your big fucking teaser. It should have been I don't know, you see a fucking lightsaber ignite and it passing through the camera, and you see Mark Hamill's face for half a second. It's fucking Luke or something, something cool.
Yeah, I'm more positive on it than you are. Here's what I'll say. I think it's a good teaser. In fact, I think it might be a really good teaser, just in the realm of being a teaser, and just kind of saying, here's a little taste of the direction we're heading, and that this is a year out. Just kind of what I like about the statement this teaser makes is that the old does not matter as much as the new, and that we're setting a new status quo. Things have changed. They're not going to be exactly as you remember them, but there's going to be some familiar elements. That kind of felt like the message of the trailer to me, in that for the first, for most of it, it's just here's some of the new faces. Here's some little hints at things that have changed. The stormtroopers look a little different. You have the TIE fighters look a little different. They're flying in different kind of ways. Yeah. Those sorts of things. It's just tiny little teases, and then you have the Millennium Falcon at the end saying that because the world is different, there's new heroes, there's new villains. This is going to be a response to what we saw before. Mm-hmm. And I like all of that. And I think it's a good teaser. It's just it's a nice little entertaining watch. What annoys me is people are making such a big deal out of it. It's it is, and I feel it's tough because this, honestly, I don't have any complaints about the teaser being what it is because we are a year out.
Yeah.
I would not expect them to have the big money shot done yet. Because if they're doing their due diligence, they probably don't have it done yet. They're
it doesn't have to be a big effects shot.
Yeah,
though. It just needs to be something that's I don't know, something kind of unexpected. Something just I just thought it was so dull because there was nothing in it. It was okay, a stormtrooper, okay, someone on a speeder bike. There's a droid. I guess the only thing that was really sort of surprising in the trailer was the stupid looking lightsaber, and that's not surprising. It's a dumb lightsaber.
Anyway, but yeah, so I just think it is what it is, and I think it works for what it is. But then people are acting like it's the second coming of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This is the greatest thing to ever happen to cinema. If you look at the sheer number of articles out there, picking it apart and trying to read everything they can out of these 80 seconds of footage,
it's there's nothing interesting in it. It's whatever. It's fine for what it is, but it's there's nothing. And I'm not above the sort of picking apart trailers thing. I definitely did that back in the day, but I felt like I did that with more interesting trailers. You know?
Yeah. No, I agree. This is not a teaser I would be super interested in picking apart. I just like the general atmosphere of it, but let me say this. I was worried that this teaser was going to be one of two things. I thought it was going to be either there would be no footage from the movie. Honestly, that's what I thought it was going to be, because if you look at every other J.J. Abrams teaser ever,
that's a fair point.
There's no footage in those first teasers. Like that first Star Trek teaser, which
you
they
would
built
hear
up to,
like the sound of a lightsaber in the background,
right?
And that would be like as much as you got.
Yeah. So I thought there wasn't going to be any footage. So I guess I was impressed just that we saw something that will presumably be in the movie.
Yeah.
But the other thing, I thought they could have gone too far the other way, and I was a little worried that if there was footage, it would all be Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill and pushing the nostalgia and just showing, familiar sights from 4, 5, and 6 with older people.
I mean, we did see Tatooine again, which reminded me of this, like, let's just get the fuck away from Tatooine. Tatooine's been in, like, all these fucking movies.
Yeah.
God, it's just a desert. Let's go to a more interesting planet for once.
No, I know. But anyway, it's just what I did like, though, is that it focused on the new characters. We don't see the old actors. And, I've read some of those articles.
I mean, although you say it's like we focus on the new characters, but it's like we see 3 people's faces.
Yeah.
Like, and since I don't know those actors, because, I don't watch a lot of modern movies, like, it means nothing to me. Because it's like, there's a black guy in a stormtrooper outfit who's obviously a good guy, because no stormtrooper that's a bad guy takes his helmet off, obviously. And then there's a girl on a speeder bike, and then there's a guy in an X-Wing suit. And I don't even know if that guy's the main character. That might just be like a guy in a fucking X-Wing.
That's Oscar Isaac. Yeah. He's a pretty big
It could
actor.
be fucking Biggs Darklighter for all I know.
Yeah.
It's not, though.
Anyway. But,
Wedge Antilles.
Yeah.
A real fucking X-Wing
I say
pilot.
focus on. Nothing is focused on in this teaser. It's its own thing. It's just a little, it is what it is. It's a little tease. It's a dirty tease. But, I'm glad that it tried to make this look exciting without just trotting out the nostalgia beats that it really easily could have done.
Like, I would have just preferred it, honestly, trotting out the nostalgia beats over, like, it being really dull. Like, I just thought it was, like, the narration was really vapid and didn't say anything about anything. Like, it didn't, like, there's, like, I feel like I don't understand how people are trying to pick apart this trailer, because there's nothing in it to pick apart. I want a trailer that you can pick apart and be like, what the fuck is that? Like,
but you're
my God, what is that droid?
Here's the thing. We have a year. You're gonna get that.
Yeah, but this is the first thing we've seen from the movie. Like, it should be a cool, exciting, big teaser trailer for the new Star Wars movie. And instead it's like, again, like, the only really big thing in it is, like, that lightsaber has a lightsaber crossguard that I think looks stupid. Some people kind of are a fan of.
Yeah.
Yay.
But I also realize we're falling into the same trap. We're judging this. The movie could still be the most phenomenal movie ever.
Like, it says nothing about the quality of the movie. Okay. I'm just judging the teaser trailer.
Yeah, okay.
Like, ignore... Like, you can't judge anything about the movie based on 88 seconds of footage compiled together a year before the movie comes out. I'm just saying, it's a shitty teaser, in my opinion. I wish it was a cooler teaser trailer, because I was so bummed out of, like, oh shit, like, I actually get to see the fucking footage, and it's like, well, that's... okay.
I'll admit, I probably did enjoy the spin-off trailers more, like the Lego version, and the George Lucas Special Edition version.
That was really
which was
good.
really funny.
I watched that this morning. That was really fucking funny.
I just love how fast people got those things out. Yeah.
You know what? The George Lucas-ified version of the trailer is a more interesting teaser than the actual teaser, because there was, like, more shit going on.
I love that shot at the end where they have the Millennium Falcon going through, like, a hurricane of TIE fighters.
That was legitimately a more exciting ending to that teaser, because it's like, oh hey, it's the Millennium Falcon on fucking Tatooine with this really disorienting, shitty fucking shot, and oh, there's 2 TIE fighters. Oh no.
Yeah.
It's like, we saw the Millennium Falcon take care of like 1 billion TIE fighters. Like, let's have a fucking wall of TIE fighters. That was awesome. That dude should have made that teaser. Even if that shot's not even in the movie, because it would have been ridiculous.
Right. It's funny. People make too big a deal out of these things, and I also wonder, but that's the thing, is they probably should have anticipated that people would be making this big a deal out of it.
Yeah.
But maybe that's the thing. Maybe they knew that they could have given us anything, and they would have gotten the same amount of hype.
The whole movie, or the whole teaser should have just been, like, that weird soccer ball droid, just, like, like, the whole, like, it's 88 seconds of it just, like, darting across the screen.
That is
with
the
some Star Wars movie.
That is the weirdest shot to me in this trailer, because every time I watch the teaser, I forget it's there, and I'm like, what's the point? It's a new droid.
It's like this fucking soccer ball droid, and it seems like it looks like a shot that's probably just even going to be just cut out of the movie, because there's nothing, like, it's just like, what? Okay, great. Like, it's just, I can't get over how, like, nothing happens. It's like, all the shots in the trailer are like, the black guy in the stormtrooper armor stands up into the camera, okay? And then there's like a soccer ball droid that goes across. Then there's like a woman on a speeder bike who flies into the distance. Then there's a couple of X-wings flying over a fucking river or the lake, and there's a guy walking in the woods. He turns on his lightsaber, and the Millennium Falcon flies past 2 TIE fighters. That's the whole teaser. Yeah. That's all of the footage we saw. Nothing happens in any of it. The most exciting thing that happens is a dude turns on a lightsaber, and some TIE fighters shoot lasers for like half a second that you don't even really get to see it. That's the most exciting thing in the whole Star Wars teaser. Like, what the fuck? We didn't see anything. Like, I could have filmed almost all of that didn't have CG in it.
Yeah.
It's like,
and I wonder also if, like, they just finished shooting this.
Yeah.
It's possible they don't have the cool stuff to show us yet. Maybe, if J.J. Abrams had his way, he would have waited a month or two, and then he could have cut a really great teaser.
It's
but
entirely possible.
Yeah.
It's just... I can't believe that it's like 88 seconds of nothing, and like everyone's like trying to pick it apart.
I saw articles saying like, this rekindled my love of cinema, and it's like,
yeah, right. Like I saw some of that shit too, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I am all for awesome trailers. Go watch some awesome trailers. Like, they're like cool trailers are the best shit.
Watch the Fast and Furious 7 trailer. Yeah. That is the most awesome trailer mankind has ever made because. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has a cast on his arm, breaks out of his cast, and punches a dude. Yeah, it's great.
Like, just that shot from that trailer is better than this entire teaser. Like, that would just be more exciting. Like, they should have just played the Fast Furious 7 trailer and just put Star Wars Force Awakens on the end. It would have been a better trailer.
Let's talk about another teaser, sort of for points of comparison. Right. While we're on the nostalgia kick of them making new movies out of old franchises.
Yes.
There was also the teaser this week that got quickly overshadowed, but the teaser for Jurassic World, which
Jurassic Park 4.
I'm really interested in this movie because I think with some new blood in the franchise and a new director and writers and actors, there's infinite room for good Jurassic Park movies. What did you think of this teaser?
I thought it was fine. Like it was more happened in it. Like we saw, we saw a shark get eaten by a giant dinosaur.
Which I'll say that's something I really liked because. I thought that it indicated more to me the direction of this movie than the Star Wars, because that indicated to me that they're really kind of trying to think about if there really was a Jurassic Park theme park, what would it be like?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's because I didn't think like the Jurassic World trailer was like amazing or anything. No. I'm also not a huge Jurassic Park guy. Like I would like the first movie. Most of the thing I mostly like about the first movie, honestly, is Jeff Goldblum. Like
me too.
Like the movie's fine, but he's the best part in it. But yeah, but that's like the Jurassic World trailer. Like, at least you understand, like, some of, like, the premise of, like, what the movie's doing. Like, because it's like, I do think that's an interesting idea. I don't know if it'll be a good movie with that interesting idea. But the idea of Jurassic Park, like, fuck, like, all this shit about, like, we're trying to make Jurassic Park. Like, Jurassic Park has been made, and it has existed in this world for, like, 10 years or something. And, like, this is a world that's... Because I think this is kind of funny in a way. That, like, this world is so jaded... that having a theme park made entirely of dinosaurs is not enough. You have to make another genetically engineer a new dinosaur to make your theme park interesting. Like, that seems like that's the plot of that movie.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the premise for the new Star Wars movies? A guy walking through the forest in a football droid. Like, what? No. Yeah. Like, fucking shark-eating dinosaur. Fucking Chris Pratt riding with velociraptors. Oh, wait, okay. Here's the fucked up thing about that trailer. No feathers on the raptors. We know better. We know better now. Like, it's fine with the original Jurassic Park. That's as best we knew what dinosaurs looked like back then. Our understanding of dinosaur biology has evolved since the original Jurassic Park, and I think they should have updated the designs of the dinosaurs to reflect that. I'm kind of personally offended that they didn't. Because there's still time, technically, I suppose.
They did actually incorporate feathers a little bit into Jurassic Park 3. I don't know if you remember that.
I never watched Jurassic Park 3.
Okay, the Raptors do not... they don't have enough feathers, but there are some feathers on them. Yeah. So they're kind of going back. Yeah, it's a little weird. Maybe the effects just aren't finished. Maybe maybe the feather effects have like a tress effect thing on them.
And they call NVIDIA to take care of it for them.
They didn't render it in time. Yeah. But you know what? I like any trailer that promises me more Chris Pratt as unlikely action hero because that's kind of awesome. Mm-hmm. That dude is going to be everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's definitely, like, that has me curious about the movie in a way I would not have been, because I knew nothing about, like, what it was going to be. Yeah. And, like, that's definitely a cool premise for a new Jurassic Park movie if you're going to have to make another one.
Absolutely. All right. So, Sean, let's get into 2 hours into this podcast, our kind of main final topic for the episode.
Right.
which is just something we have to talk about because it is such a fascinating issue to talk about, which is the ever-present but more present than ever issue of video games that refuse to work at launch, or the November in which nothing worked.
Yes.
Recap a little bit for us.
Far Cry 4.
Yeah, recap a little bit for us what happened.
Okay, so I mean, honestly, if you want to go back to the real start of this narrative, you have to go back to Drive Club, because lest we forget, the fucking PS Plus version of Drive Club is still not out, because as far as I'm aware, major parts of that game's multiplayer are still completely busted.
Yeah, that game is broken and it will never be fixed.
Probably not, yeah, because that game came out in fucking October. So yeah, Drive Club came out, which was the PlayStation 4 team-based racing nonsense game. That was going to be a launch game that they delayed out for a whole year at this point, and then it came out, and there was going to be the PS Plus free trial version of it or whatever. And the game came out, and it seems like it's not a particularly good game regardless. I never really expected it to be, unfortunately, because I relatively recently went on YouTube and looked up the footage from the PS4 reveal event where that guy talks about Drive Club for the first time. That's still some of the best footage from any press conference ever. That guy is more affectionate about cars than I am about anything in my entire life, combined. That dude loves fucking cars, and it's a real fucking shame that game seems like it's not that good. And not only is it not that good, that when it launched, since it has a huge social multiplayer component to it, that component of the game seems like it was completely fucking busted. It did not work on launch. The PS Plus version got delayed to the point that it still is not out. So most of the problem seems like they're still not fixed with Drive Club. And so that game, it's just completely fucked. It seems like, from what I understand, you can play the single player stuff more or less fine, but the whole promise of the game was this whole social team based racing, which I still don't that game's out. I still don't know what that guy meant by team based racing,
and no one does because they can't play
exactly. Because here's the best part is, from what I understand, one of the things that's still busted about Drive Club is the whole part where you make a fucking Drive Club with your friends online that you can race together in. You can't make the club in Drive Club.
Yeah, I think you're smart to isolate Drive Club as the precipice for all of this, because it really shone a light on this right before the floodgates opened.
Yeah.
And obviously this has been an omnipresent issue in gaming for years now.
Yeah.
You think about the Battlefield 4 fiasco,
right,
and things like that recently. Even something like Watch Dogs, which wasn't a mess or anything when it came out. It wasn't it's not like it crashed every time you opened it, but it was so clearly not the game Ubisoft sold people. That made people mad. So
and it's also the classic issue with MMOs, which kind of actually happened again, where MMO stuff never really works on launch. But that's because of that's more understandable because it's just server stress stuff, Yeah, and then the Warlords of Draenor, which the expansion for World of Warcraft came out at some point in November, and that had, as I understand it, some trouble with server load at launch. That's also because that thing sold, I think, way more than anyone was expecting, because World of Warcraft is back up to 10 million something subscribers.
And it had been on a decline. Mists of Pandaria did not sell well.
Yeah, exactly. So that gave that a pretty big boost. So that had some issues, but that's pretty understandable.
So all of this was on the brain by the time the Assassin's Creed Unity debacle happened.
Didn't we say debacle?
Did I say
You said debacle.
Oh, fuck. Debacle.
Yeah, can we just...
I have a cold. I'm sorry. That has nothing to do with
what? I have a cold. Sorry, it prevents me from pronouncing words correctly.
It was a Hail Mary.
That's a really fucking weird cold you got there, Jonathan. You might want to get that looked at.
All right, anyway.
But the big one... I guess this is really two big ones, but I think probably the one that's was more widespread and sort of criticized was Assassin's Creed Unity, which when that launched, the reviews came out. And again, kind of like with Drive Club, behind the technical issues, if you read the reviews, it's pretty clear that it's probably not that great of a game either way, with most Assassin's Creed games, and people are just finally starting to wake up to, the core of that franchise is maybe a little bit fucked. But outside of that, across the board on all platforms, including PC, the frame rate is fucked. Even if you have a really great PC, it seems like that game is not optimized at all, and, the frame rate is fucking shit. There are, a huge myriad of glitches of just, kind of, your classic stuff that, has kind of been phased out, I feel like, mostly, which is the thing where the main character falls through the world. That doesn't happen in the games nearly as much as it used to, and, it was funny to see, people, that's, one of the big glitches is, Yeah, it's like the relative frequency with which Arno, the main character, just fucking falls through the floor and descends into the fucking video game hell that exists below the level. And then all the amazing screenshots of the graphical glitch where characters in cutscenes' faces will not load properly. So you have this, like, horrific monstrosity of, like, the love interest in the game who has no face. So it's just this, like, woman with red hair with just, like, this floating pair of eyeballs and this fucking demon mouth. Just, like, terrible. Like, it basically looks like the dude whose face gets melted off at the end of Raiders. And there's a couple of those screenshots that have been floating around from, like, other people, too. It's not even just the same one, because it's not just an isolated incident. It seems like that's a relatively common glitch that can happen. Just, like, stuff like missions not, working properly, like the sequencing not loading in properly. I mean, I watched a couple of Let's Plays that the Achievement Hunters did in Assassin's Creed Unity, and even just those, which is only watching, like, maybe like 40 minutes total of footage, which is the most of like direct footage, like contiguous footage I've seen of the game. There's just a huge number of glitches of just like the controls not working properly, enemies just sort of like you would kill an enemy and then the enemy wouldn't actually die and you'd have to kill him twice. He's like just something fucked up, and like there's just a huge variety of random glitches like constantly throughout the video.
Yeah. So can I talk about, because I have a more direct
you
experience.
Talk about how you're encountered with it.
Because I was the one, I got really disappointed because of Assassin's Creed Unity.
And
because
I knew.
Yeah.
I did not pre-order this. I never would have pre-ordered it. I'm never fucking pre-ordering an Assassin's Creed game. Because I fucking know better. But
okay.
You.
Well, but I was still in the glorious honeymoon halcyon days of the glow of Assassin's Creed 4.
Yeah.
And it was so good. And I so desperately wanted more of that. And more than anything else, I should say, I had Assassin's Creed Unity on pre-order back in the summer when they did the presentation at E3, and they put it up for pre-order, and I do that on Amazon sometimes because there's no risk, so whatever. I did that, and then I had canceled it when it started to look like the game might be a little rough. But then, basically, at the point where I had burned out on Destiny, and I tried Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and I didn't really like it, and I just had no console games to play, and I was kind of in a drought, and I was playing a fucking 10-year-old Fire Emblem game, and I really wanted something new to play. I'm like, okay, even if this isn't a great Assassin's Creed game, I'll play it for what it is and I'll enjoy it, and I pre-ordered the game. And I figured it'll be, maybe it's a 7 out of 10, but it could be fun. I did not anticipate the game would be broken. No one could anticipate the game would be that thoroughly broken, to be fair. I would be okay with some mediocrity. I was okay accepting that it probably wouldn't be as good as Assassin's Creed 4.
Yeah.
I just wanted something new to play, and I like Assassin's Creed, and I like French Revolution era Paris stuff, and I thought it could be cool. And then, so I pre-ordered it, and then I realized, I pre-ordered it like the Friday before it came out, so it came out on a Tuesday, pre-ordered it on the Friday, so it would come in time, so I could play it that day, because I had some time off that day. And then it got to be the weekend, and I realized there were no reviews coming out for it. I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
This is weird. I'm like, why is there no reviews for this game yet?
Because like Dragon Age reviews came out
the same time.
Yeah, the week because Dragon Age came out a week after Assassin's Creed, but its reviews came out like the night before Assassin's Creed came out.
Yeah, so, and then I saw on Kotaku and Polygon and Joystick, kind of the sites I read, they were all saying, we don't have our review yet because it's been embargoed until 12 hours after the game launches. Yeah. It's embargoed until noon on the day of release. And that was when I was like, oh fuck, why did I pre-order this?
Especially because like the only time when that is like maybe kind of like okay is if the game is like completely online,
Yes.
But that's not what Assassin's Creed is. Assassin's Creed is almost entirely single. In fact, they stripped out the multiplayer and put in some co-op stuff. But like this Assassin's Creed is more single player and like offline than most Assassin's Creed games have been.
Yes. So that really, I was like, oh my god, I've got this game coming. I've paid $60. What the fuck? And so it came on the day, and I was like, well, I'm not going to open it yet. Let's wait until the reviews get here. Yeah. The reviews publish, and they're all unanimously horrible. Some people were kinder than others. Some people thought, it maybe was a game that showed some promise beneath all the glitches. Yeah. Some people thought it was just a boring game.
And it's also the classic problem with having a glitchy game is that for some people it's just going to be like a better experience than others, where it's like, for some people when they play an Assassin's Creed game, they get like 20 hours into it and then it just erases their save file for no reason and overwrites it. That doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens to some people. So it's a crapshoot experience.
Indeed. So I remember, for instance, the Kotaku review that person did not experience a ton of glitches. Like,
Yeah.
he said, I'm hearing other people are experiencing glitches. I saw some frame rate hiccups, but for me it wasn't the worst. But he still gave it a, bad review, saying this is just a dull game, don't play it.
Yeah.
So that was a warning sign. Then there were things like, I think Polygon got it bad. They didn't, they got a lot of glitches. The people at Giant Bomb were reporting it was bad.
Yeah.
So I had, the game in my hands. I had not unwrapped it yet, smartly, and I was just like, well, I'm going to have to go another couple weeks without a new game. I'm sending you back Assassin's Creed. And I sent it back through Amazon.
Go back to the hell from whence you came, Demon Spawn.
And I even got free shipping back because when I made my report with Amazon for the return, I said, this game, it arrived in good condition, but the game is apparently totally broken, so I don't want to pay for it.
It's like good condition in this case is really subjective.
Yeah.
So,
that's fair, right? For me to say that? Okay.
I think that's totally fair. If like a game, like a fucking game, like they, putting an embargo 12 hours after the game's release on the reviews, like, that's just completely unethical.
That's
for a
anti-consumer.
game that in no way warrants it. Like, I understand that there are some games, like, especially with, like, games that are entirely online, where it's just, like, realistically, nobody could review the game until the game was actually out. That's not what this is. So it's, like, totally unethical practice. Just to, obviously to hide the quality of the game and to try to, like, prevent people from, not, like, rescinding their pre-orders, basically.
Well, and what it does is it points to the broader problem here, which is that if they did that embargo thing, then Ubisoft knew 100% that this game was broken. Mm-hmm. It's not that this game is dull. It's not that this game is, a little glitchy. The game was broken at launch for most people playing it, as I understand it. So they not only did the review embargo thing, they knew they were selling people at a $60 price point, a broken game that they most likely would not be able to fix ever completely. And if they could fix it, it would take a while.
Yeah, they should have delayed the game, because even if you're not necessarily going to make the game amazing, but you can at least make the game technically competent.
Yeah, and it baffles me on a couple of levels, because it's like they had to have known a long way in advance. Obviously, the game would have gone gold weeks ahead of time, and they would have known how much more work there was to do months ahead of time. I'm confused as to why they didn't They had Assassin's Creed Rogue coming out the same day.
Yes.
And by all accounts, Rogue may not be a phenomenal game, but it's a solid game.
Yeah, because it's just basically more Assassin's Creed 4.
Yeah, it's technically competent, and no one hates it. Everyone's some people really like it. No one is totally, against it, as far as I've seen. Mm-hmm. Why didn't they just do what they did last year? Put Rogue on all consoles, get it on Xbox One, PS4, have that be their November release, and get Unity out.
Delay Unity to, the spring or something. Yeah.
Right. They wouldn't lose anything that way. They might get some people mad because of a delay, but they could have done something like give people a rebate on Rogue or something. I would love to play Rogue. I'm not going to dig out my PS3 to play it.
Yeah.
So it's a weird thing there. It's baffling, and this seems a lot more unethical to me than the Master Chief Collection thing, because maybe they knew about some of these bugs going into the release. As you say, 343 was doing something kind of unprecedented here.
Yeah.
And they let people review it early. They did do their tests. They just, when it got out into the wild, it didn't work the way they expected it to.
Yeah.
It's not quite the same thing. I don't think they as consciously knew they were selling. people.
It does seem like the amount of problems that the Master Chief Collection has, based on the reports, does indicate very much to me that it was a case of it was rushed. Game was pushed out to launch, and that there's a huge number of bugs that are the kind of bugs that I think probably most reviewers would not encounter, because I don't think most people reviewing the game probably did not experience all the content the way that a fan would.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. But let's talk about Master Chief Collection, because that's the other one. Basically, it's the campaigns work fine for most people. Yeah. It's the issue of multiplayer at the beginning was just broken. No one could get on.
Yeah. For a couple of days, the matchmaking system, it seemed was just not matching people almost at all.
Yeah, they were very proactive on it. I'll say 343.
Yeah, they've released fucking 6 patches or something like that at this point,
and it has gotten better. It's not like they've done nothing. But it's still, there's a lot of matchmaking wait times, some uneven teams. By the time I got to play it, the uneven team stuff was not a huge problem, but the teams were kind of small.
Yeah. I think my favorite report, and this is one that was one of the first ones I read of the original thread I saw when it started coming out, because it was kind of a slow thing with Master Chief Collection. Because again, all the reviews came out early, and it was very indicative of how useless those reviews are for this kind of game, where it was like nobody mentioned any problems in those reviews, and like there are problems, like there are like some of the glitches in the game are not just matchmaking, like they are stuff where like custom games will not work properly. There's stuff like Forge will not save. Like that's a common problem that like a lot of people have, like with like just all the multiplayer suite in general is really buggy, evidently. And so, like, obviously the reviewers in general did not do enough to sort of expose that. So it was a very slow wave of me just seeing some reports on, like some people I follow on Twitter, some, like, threads on Reddit or NeoGAF, people kind of talking about it, and then all of a sudden, like, there was this one big thread that I saw where, like, this guy was like, okay, let's try to list all these, like, problems that people are having, and let's try to just, like, make a list, send it to 343 to try to, like, help them along the process. That's one of the things I like about a lot of, like, the audience for some of these games is when, you know, they don't just bitch. Like, because they're people who want the game to work, so they will, like, do a lot of the QA stuff for the company by just being like, okay, guys, let's try to assemble as comprehensive a list of this stuff we can and try to describe the circumstances and send this to 343 on Twitter or something and try to get this problem solved. And I just browsed through that list, and the best one I thought was so fucking funny was someone describing that, you know, they had spent all night trying to get into a Big Team Battle playlist because they wanted to play Big Team Battle. They got into it. I think, like, Big Team Battle was supposed to be, I'm sure I remember the exact numbers. I think it was, like, the game's supposed to be 8v8 for whatever, like, the Halo one he was getting into. But then it only matched up 6v6. But then when he actually got into the game, what happened was it was teams of 2v2, v2, like v4, I think. And it was like, they had split it up, so it was like red team versus blue team versus like yellow team versus purple team versus like green team or something. And it was like, I just saw that and it, like, I realized, okay, that's the kind of, like, that's where it's breaking down at some point. It's like, that's not just, like, server load, you know? Like,
yes.
There's something going on where there's, like, a lot of people describing problems of, like, getting into games where everyone gets assigned onto the same team. Or, I was just listening to the Giant Bombcast last night, and one of them, Drew, was talking about his problems, and he said that consistently the game will never say that he has won the match. It will always say that you tied the match. Like, no matter what your score is, it will always say you tied at the end of the Carnage Report. And stuff like that, that it just seems like there's this huge number of very random, inexplicable bugs of stuff like Forge won't save, or for some people's copies, Halo 3 will just not load up. It will always hard lock. There are frequent reports of just, like, crashes happening, like, sporadically with, like, in any mode. Yeah. That seems like crashes are fairly common. There were a lot of reports of achievements not popping correctly, but I think that got fixed by one of the patches. And, like, just, like, stuff of, like, well, it will just, like, not, you know, fully populate games anymore, or, like, the teams will be unbalanced, the team colors will be wrong. And it's, like, a lot of really weird fucking glitches.
And it's a different kind of case than Assassin's Creed, both for better and for worse.
Yeah.
Because this is clearly a phenomenal game underneath all these glitches. Mm-hmm. 343 made something really cool, but it's not working properly.
Yeah.
I think if it were working properly, obviously this is a great game, other than Unity. If Unity were working properly, it would still be a mediocre game.
Yeah.
This is clearly a very good game with these hitches, and I think that's why people are being a little more tolerant of it.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Because there's still hope, you know.
Yeah.
Like, if the patches keep on rolling out, eventually this game should be functional. And, like...
And to be clear, also, I think 343 has been a lot more conciliatory towards the fans. They've said they're sorry in no uncertain terms. They're trying hard. They're asking for, you know, fan feedback. They've done, as you say, like 6 patches. They're working at it. Yeah. Ubisoft feels like they're a little more disingenuous about things, to me, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
What else were you going to say?
I don't know, like, I'm just trying to, like, think of any of the other glitches. It's just like, oh, here's another really good one. This was also reported on the Bombcast, where apparently Drew got into a game of, like, it was like a Team Slayer hopper or something, and he got into the multiplayer game, and it loaded up Forge. So they played a multiplayer game in Forge in the Team Slayer hopper, so, like, everyone could fly around as the fucking monitor and drop shit. It's like, how is that even possible? Like, that's
weird.
Fucking, like, yeah, like, and that's, like, the kind of glitches you get, is that there's, you know, a lot of it is just sort of, like, you know, matchmaking times are really fucked for a lot of people still, although it seems like that has gotten a lot better, where it used to be just impossible. But it's, like, it's the weird ones that fascinate me, where there's just, like, it seems like this game, like, the multiplayer suite in particular, just, like, it's kind of, like, breaking at the seams, which, and again, to be fair, it's, like, it's trying to handle these 4 different games, all of which are, like, very different, are on different engines, trying to handle all that different network code and stuff. Like, I cannot imagine that that's an easy thing to deal with, But just because it's not an easy thing to deal with does not make it excusable that it doesn't work.
Yeah. And I think this is where our discussion has to head next, is to the bigger issue here, which is what should be done about this by these companies, and what should the path going forward be in the future.
Like I think it's like the people need to be more willing to delay games, like because I think the main thing is we've seen a lot of games get delayed. Like that's been like one big thing about this year. Stuff like Arkham Knight, Bloodborne got delayed a couple of months relatively recently, and we've seen that. The main problem with Assassin's Creed and Master Chief Collection is that both of these games were coming out in late November. And so for like the general, marketing understanding, like the business sense is, like if you delay those games, you're missing a huge opportunity of having them out on the holiday season before Black Friday. Like these games had no space to be delayed without completely missing the holiday season. And so it's evidently like Ubisoft and Microsoft were not willing to do that. So it's clear to me that it's just something where it's like, video games are getting more complex. They're always like the big AAA things. They're always going to get more complex, and that's why we're seeing more and more of these instances of games not working. Then also like the matchmaking online features are becoming more robust and more fully integrated into stuff, and that's clearly having a big issue with like server loads. Nobody ever is able to properly anticipate their server load and account for it. That shit breaks constantly on like everything. Even like government websites can't handle that shit right. So that's always going to be an issue that we need to sort of figure out how to deal with. But in general, like we just need, the companies need to be willing to delay a game and sort of trust the quality of the game to garner its sales more.
And it's just, I think we also need to look back at gaming history, which is, I know games are obviously a lot more technically complex than they were back in the day, but, like let's look at like a Super Mario 64 or a Zelda Ocarina of Time. Yeah. Those games came out, and there was never a patch, there was never any assumption that they could fix it later.
I mean, there were reissues of cartridges, like there are multiple versions of Ocarina of Time that fixed bugs and stuff.
Sure, but the point is, if you had an original, version of the Ocarina of Time cartridge, the game wasn't unplayable. It's like there was this assumption that you would QA test something to the point where it was releasable and it wasn't going to be glitched into obscurity. Yeah. And I think,
although to be fair, like those games do exist, we just don't remember them anymore. Like it's not like just like completely technically broken games are a new thing. Like that's always been around. Like it's a little more frequent now, particularly with like the bigger products. But it's like, I think we should keep in mind that there are games that have, like, Dragon Age and Far Cry 4 both had, like, some multiplayer issues on launch because of server load issues. But, like, technically those games seem basically fine. Like, there's not, like, huge widespread ports of bugs and stuff. Yeah. So it's like, games are still coming out that are fine. And there were games in the past that came out that were fucked.
Yes. No, it's absolutely true. I'm just saying, I feel like there is this general philosophy that's a lot of, companies are not playing by anymore, which is that idea of, you don't release something anticipating that you'll fix it later. You release it in the best form you can. And obviously there are these big corporate demands on top of that, but there's also this belief that you just can magically fix something after launch. Yeah. And just because you can be able to patch something doesn't mean you should play by that philosophy.
I mean, because it is also telling that like every single game has a day one patch these days. Like every single one.
Yeah. And, I think, honestly, you talk about that games should be delayed more and all that, and I completely agree with all of that. The model for this these days, and this is the only time you're ever going to hear me say this, is Nintendo. Mm-hmm. They don't release broken games. They don't release buggy games. They release finished, polished games every time. If it's a major Nintendo release or even a minor Nintendo release, that doesn't mean they don't patch their things, because patches are a good thing. It's good to be able to improve your game. Like Smash Bros. 3DS, it had some online problems, but that's not obviously the draw of that game. Yeah. But anyway, the patches that have come out for that weren't to fix broken parts of the game. It was to say, well, Little Mac seems a little unbalanced.
Let's change the balance.
Yeah, those sorts of things. Those are good patches. And that's the kind of thing Nintendo does. But Nintendo doesn't just set an arbitrary release date and stick to it at all costs. Yeah. Nintendo has delays, but it's more the type of thing like, they said Twilight Princess might come out in 2005, but now it's going to come out in 2006. They wait to announce a release date until they're ready and they know that game is going to come out. And they're very good about that.
It also, I think, helps that Nintendo's not an American company, so they don't feel the pressure of the holiday season. Right. I think the way that like a lot of these other companies marketed towards the Western market do, where it's like Nintendo can just be like, fuck it, like let's just release this game in December. Who gives a shit,
Yeah. But I think that's It's not just the Japaneseness of it. I also think it's this trust that the quality of the games will win out, as you say, because Nintendo games, when they come out, they sell really well. Now, they sell well by Nintendo standards these days, except on the 3DS. That's just, the 3DS games sell crazy big numbers sometimes. But, so Smash Bros. Wii U may not be selling Assassin's Creed Unity numbers, but for the Wii U, it's got a, record high attach rate and that kind of thing. And that's because the game is good. It doesn't really matter so much when it came out. That does happen to be a November Black Friday game, but I think that's more coincidental than anything.
Yeah, probably.
It's, it came out when it came out, and it was good, and people bought it because it looked good, and they marketed it well.
Yeah.
And you knew that when you got that game home and played it, you weren't going to load it, and then suddenly every character was Peach or something.
Yeah. Because, I mean, isn't that, one like that, what the fuck is it called, that Toad Tracker? Is that what it is? That game's coming out in, a week or two, right?
Yeah.
That's the December release.
Right.
Nobody releases games in December. That's just, what?
Right.
That's madness.
And it looks like a really good game. Sure. I'm actually excited to play that, if I ever get to play it. But yeah. So, weirdly, this is one area where Nintendo has their shit together where a lot of other people don't.
I mean, it is also important to remember that, Nintendo is working on, HD, old, hardware. So, they're still, they're not on the cutting edge anymore. They do have, the convenience of working on technology that is, a known quantity. Because a part of this is, I think, growing pains for the industry of, trying to adjust to the new consoles and stuff, and still have their really heavily accelerated development cycles. That these yearly franchises and shit. It's I'm really impressed that Advanced Warfare fucking was fine. That's great.
Well, Call of Duty now they are spending 3 years per game.
Yeah,
so.
That's true.
But I mean, what is Ubisoft going to have to do in specific? Because they've had a rough year.
They need to fucking stop making Assassin's Creed annual. They
this...
never should have been an annual franchise. They should hopefully this is a wake up call to them of just being we can't do this. We need to take the time for these. And I obviously understand that it's not the same team making every Assassin's Creed game, and so it's talking about the development time for an Assassin's Creed game and the development team is kind of ambiguous because Ubisoft is this huge gestalt of a company. Yeah. But I think it's really clear because Assassin's Creed 3 also had major technical issues on launch, and the frame rate of that game was always terrible. And so I think it's just something where they should take time with that fucking franchise and figure out what they want to do with it, and figure a direction to go in and stick with it, with the story and the gameplay and how they're going to develop them.
Would it surprise you at all if they decided next year is a no Assassin's Creed year?
It would surprise me greatly. Okay. I don't think they will. I think it's what they should do, but I don't know. I think they will stop making yearly Assassin's Creed games when they stop making Assassin's Creed games at all. When they just run that franchise into the fucking ground.
Guitar Hero style?
Piss on it. Yeah, the Activision's Guitar Hero style. When they have just fucking torn that franchise to pieces, then they'll stop making the games because they can't anymore.
It's just too bad because that is a franchise that has so much potential.
Yeah, I mean it's always had so much potential, and it's only very, very rarely sort of tapped into almost any of it. I still think the only particularly really good Assassin's Creed games are 2 and 4, with maybe Brotherhood is pretty good, but it's also just basically Assassin's Creed 2 on a smaller map. And the rest of that franchise is Assassin's Creed 3 has cool shit in it, but oh my god, it has incredible problems of just structurally and technically. And Assassin's Creed Revelations is an incredible bore that also will just fuck your life and erase your save. Assassin's Creed 4 is pretty good. It seems like Assassin's Creed Unity is just completely a complete fucking train wreck. And let's not forget that the root of all this, Assassin's Creed 1 was a pretty bad game. So the franchise overall, it's always had been such a cool idea, and it's always had really cool shit in it, and that's why I've always stuck with it as a franchise, and I will fucking play Unity because you're getting it now with the Xbox One.
That's true.
So I can't escape the franchise. It's my fucking curse. Because I'm going to have played this game and never have probably bought it. Goddamn.
That's the thing. I looked online when I got this bundle. It's could I just sell the Unity code and maybe buy another game with it? And because everybody bought this bundle this Black Friday, there's 1,000 of those on eBay. All right, so that's not going to happen. So I'm going to play some of Unity, and you're going to play some of Unity.
I'm probably going to finish it because I finish every game I play. God damn it.
Yeah.
God damn it, Jonathan. God fucking, why do you do this?
You get to play Halo.
Yeah, I know, but I have to play Assassin's Creed now. It's not a choice. I'll have to stick with this franchise till I die, I have to see where it goes. Yeah. Whichever one comes first.
It's just
fight to the death with me in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and this is the other part of the equation I wanted to talk about, is Ubisoft has announced their program of trying to make reprimands to the players.
Right, yes.
And it's pathetic. They're going to give the first DLC for free to everyone.
Yeah.
So that fucks over the Season Pass holders.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
to unfuck the Season Pass holders, instead of refunding them, they're giving them a free game. Now, it is a good selection of free games. You could get Far Cry 4 or a big game like that, or The Crew.
Anyone listening to this who has that opportunity, fucking get Far Cry 4. It's fucking great.
Yeah, or you can get The Crew, which is their new game. It's not out yet.
Fine.
Yeah, so we'll see. But that's not enough. If a game is this broken, I think this is one of the bigger issues, is that people are being lied to in the marketing. People are being lied to in everything they're told about these games.
Yeah.
They pay $60 fucking. They get something that literally doesn't work, and there's no recourse. You can't return it. You can't get a refund.
Yeah.
Ubisoft won't even refund the Season Pass holders, which seems... Giving a free game is not the same as giving a refund. Because honestly, the Season Pass holders should probably get a game and a refund.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. It's just... It's so ridiculous.
Maybe we'll teach these people, don't just buy season passes for games.
I understand, but it can't. The onus can't all be on the consumer.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Yeah, because I mean,
I was just saying, season passes in general, I don't love.
They're a bad
that
idea.
Trend. Yeah,
but I mean, it's if you bought a fucking refrigerator and you got it home and it just didn't power on, you would get a refund on that. You'd get a new refrigerator. It's ridiculous that these standards
kill the guy who sold it to you with the refrigerator.
That'd be a good idea, too.
Just stuff him in it, put a chain around it and throw him in the ocean.
Indeed. But you can't, this recourse doesn't exist for video games, and I think just giving away some free DLC is not good enough.
Yeah, because also the DLC for every Assassin's Creed game that I've played has been, really bad.
Yeah.
The Assassin's Creed 2... it was fun. The Assassin's Creed 2 DLC was really funny because one of the DLC missions was actually really critically important for the story. It was hugely, massively important for the character arc of Ezio, but it was also incredibly glitchy in that and I actually played through the DLC twice because one time it just did not fucking it couldn't finish it, so the mission wouldn't finish. So that was broken then, and so when both of the times I played it, the audio would not play for the second half of that DLC. So the technical issues are not new to Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. So if your idea of making reprimands is okay, you bought this $60 game that doesn't work. Here's free DLC so you can play more of this game that doesn't work.
Yeah,
that's not.
Hopefully, the faces load in the cutscenes on this one.
Yeah. And 343 has said they're going to make it right to fans. They haven't announced what their program is going to be for making reprimands, whatever that'll be. And who knows? I think if they want to offer free DLC or something like that, that could be nice. But I also think whenever a situation like this arises, they should have some kind of refund program.
Yeah, definitely. And then they should also fix the problems that exist before. I want that to be just focus on that first, and then give everybody free whatever afterwards.
Yeah, because it sucks, especially when you could make the program for saying sorry more of roping people in. I saw someone joking online, maybe they'll just give you free Halo 5 DLC when that comes out. It's that would be worse because you'd have to buy Halo 5 too.
I was thinking about that with luckily, Far Cry 4 does not have microtransactions in it, but it is going to have DLC. So there's a part of me that's well, if they're giving people free Ubisoft games that they always put out several DLC packs for Ubisoft games, maybe they're just trying to get people to buy the DLC on those games. It's their whole business strategy anyways.
Release one really bad game and get everyone to get the free game and then buy DLC. Yeah. Who knows? But it's
Far Cry 4 is really good. I'm just holding on to that. And Dragon Age, of what I played of it, seems really good too. So it's good games. Good functional games are coming out.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you can
And
play them.
I am too big a Halo fan to be dissuaded by all the problems with the Master Chief Collection because I'm going to play a lot of it when that Xbox comes.
Yes, so
and
am
I'm excited.
So am I.
Yeah. I love the achievement tracking on Xbox One is part of what convinced me to get it because it's really cool. It does it. Every achievement shows you your progress in that achievement.
Nice.
It's awesome. Yeah. And you can just snap your achievements on the side and do that while you're playing if you wanted to, if you're really intense about it. And the Master Chief Collection has 450 achievements.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm excited. My main thing when it comes is I'm just planning on doing a legendary run on all 4 games, and I'm psyched for that.
And then have you ever played Halo 2 Legendary?
No.
Oh, you're in for a fucking treat. Yeah. God. What's that?
Yeah. All right,
Video
well,
games, man.
Yeah, we kind of ended this on a down note with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And December's going to be a quiet month in some ways, but I think we're going to have a lot to talk about between the Hobbit movie coming out and final year-end stuff, and this Xbox One's going to come. That's going to entertain both of us.
Yeah, that'll be like a whole episode.
We can do a whole episode on the UI and see if we can figure it out. Between the two of us, can we figure out the UI?
Fuck you! You don't get to be involved. This is a scientific process for me. I need to lock myself in a room with this thing. Fucking put on some gloves.
All right, well,
get to it.
That's the thing. I think next time on the weekly stuff, that will be our topic. Is Sean talks about the UI
in incredible depth that nobody is particularly interested in. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's that.